I seen it advertised in this meeting is being live streamed.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So anyway, I saw him there because I had seen an advertisement in a local newspaper called the East Village Other, in which it was entitled "Save Earth Now," and it was talking about Srila Prabhupada's last appearance because it was getting cold. In October in New York, it's cold. So they said this is going to be the last time he's going to be in the park. So I saw this article, and I was thinking, I was already looking for someone like a spiritual master. I read a book someone gave it to me called the Sarbashan, which talked about Guru Nanak and his disciples and how the spiritual master would show you the higher planets in the universe and all that. It really appealed to me. So I thought I need a spiritual master for that. So I went to the park and saw Srila Prabhupada. And by the end of October, I was initiated. We weren't very strict about waiting in those days. It was a recruiting emergency. So that's when I started going to the storefront and attending Srila Prabhupada's lectures. He gave Bhagavatam every morning, 7 days a week. And Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, he gave Bhagavad Gita lectures. So I would go there after work. And I would go to Bhagavatam and take breakfast with the devotees on the way to work.
So the first time you saw Srila Prabhupada, I believe you said you were pushing your baby son, Ikendra, in the baby carriage, and you saw Prabhupada.
My wife and my stroller, we were going there to park, Avenue A. I only lived a few blocks from there. I lived on East 7th Street, about 7 blocks from the temple, from the storefront. We call it a temple, but it really wasn't a temple. It was a storefront, and went into the storefront was a dais in which Srila Prabhupada was sitting, and he was our altar, So he was our worshipful deity, practically speaking. And in front of him on the next shelf was the pictures of the parampara. And then candelabras on 2 sides. And then there was a rug, an old rug, and we were just all sitting around. So when you walked in the door, the first thing you saw was Srila Prabhupada sitting at the other end of the room on top of this, this dais, which looked like an altar, actually. So he was our worshipful deity for a long time. We didn't know anything about Krishna. We didn't know anything about anything, and we just knew what he told us. But I knew as soon as I heard a sound from Srila Prabhupada, I knew for the first time in my life that this is the ring of truth. It was the ring of truth, and I never forgot it. Whenever I listen to Srila Prabhupada, I hear the same ring every time. So that's what struck me, and I knew that my search was over. But here it is. Whatever this person's saying, I can believe it.
Do you remember the very first thing he said to you? Did he speak to you under the tree there in Tompkins Square?
No. He was having a kirtan, a lot of people around it. He was leading a kirtan. I just sort of participated like other people were doing. I didn't say anything to him. I couldn't approach him. He was like in the middle there. And I think I don't know what happened next. Somehow I ended up going to the storefront and going to classes. I used to pass the storefront every day on the way to work, getting the subway. But initially it was called Matchless Gifts. It was a gift shop, and it was all composed of gifts made of matches. It was all the way at the end of East Village, and I could see that this is not going to last because it's too far away from the beaten path. Next time I went by it, I noticed it was closed. It was empty. The next time I went by it, I saw it was filled up inside, and I looked through the window and I saw a couple of dhotis, So I thought these are Buddhists. I didn't like Buddhism, so I was going to just keep going. And someone opened the door and said, well, "Won't you come in?" And I said, "I can't stop now. I'm on the way to work." That was the first time I saw anybody in the storefront. It still said Matchless Gifts outside, and that's where I went to class.
You were working as a social worker at that time?
I was working at the Department of Social Services for the city of New York. I was a training supervisor at the time. I would train out field workers, to go out and interview people who applied for public assistance.
You were in your late 20s at that time, or early 30s?
I'm 27.
Okay, so that made you quite old compared to a lot of the devotees.
Yeah, I had 6 or 7, maybe 8 years on some of them, most of them. Kirtana was slightly older, and Hargi was about my age. but everybody else was pretty much younger. They came in handy. See, when I went to Buffalo, I was the same age as their professors.
Huh. So they respected you kind of as a professor.
Yeah, I mean, I was the same age, so the tendency is to look up to somebody a little older, especially in academic situations. So it worked out real well.
When Rupanuga, thank you, Francis, for coming. Francis Prabhu is in Quebec, and he was also in Halifax with us, along with Mangalananda and Hriday Chaitanya, who are broadcasting from Halifax right now, where we just did our first Rath Yatra, very first Rath Yatra in ISKCON Halifax.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Francis has two Jersey cows with a baby calf inside one of the Jersey cows. And what, about 8 acres? Is that correct, Francis?
I think it's 18 acres.
18 acres. Okay.
Yeah, that's plenty.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say, Rupanuga Prabhu just made reference to going to Buffalo. And from what I remember him telling me, some folks they were looking for someone to come and teach Bhagavad Gita course. And were they looking for people from Transcendental Meditation, from TM to do that?
They I don't know if I want to get into this, take so much time, but
We love it.
the University of Buffalo was concerned about the students. They were rioting because of the war, Vietnam War, and the university wanted to calm them down. So they offered an idea that they would open up the student union and other facilities for students to have classes by anybody they wanted, could come there and just have classes. It was not for credit, but just provide facilities. But that didn't work out. They burned down one of the outbuildings or something. So they said, well, we come up with something else. They call this a bulletin board college, where any course posted, if enough signatures, then and the teacher was made known, that person who would teach the course would come before the faculty committee to see if he could get approved, and you could get 3 credits for the course. So that calmed everything down a little bit. And so that's how I did. I went before the faculty committee and convinced them that the mantra was not a prayer. The mantra was meditation. Mantra meditation.
Because if you would have said a prayer, they wouldn't have been into it.
No, because you have to separate church from state.
Uh-huh.
See? And a couple of the faculty members were young Christian students. There was about 7 or 8 of them. Two of them were young Christian students, and they were trying to say that I was introducing a prayer, and I had to say, no, this is not a prayer. This is a mantra, ancient meditation, and mantra, mind-releasing sound vibration that's been chanted in India for thousands of years, and so that's what this is about. So then I also had a cover of the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita had yet to be published. It was on the press actually, and they had sent me a copy of the cover, what it would be looking like when it came off the press. So I had this cover with me, and I was able to pass it around, and they were very impressed because it was Macmillan Company, and on the back of the book, the cover, there was Denise Levertov and Thomas Merton and Allen Ginsberg, who wrote little testimonials. So this impressed them that this was going to be the textbook for the course, and that really helped. Yeah, you're showing it. Yeah, that was it. But I just had that in the back part,
Right.
And that helped a lot. And then so anyway, they approved the course. So that was
Jai. And out of that course, the following devotees join. Jagadish Prabhu, his wife Lakshmi Moni, Trivikram Swami, Burijan Prabhu, Gunagraya Maharaj, Tejas Prabhu, Loka Varnatan. Who am I missing?
Well, they all weren't in that course, but they all were around the time. And when I started a little center a few blocks away, the word got around. And so a lot of them joined through the center, but some of them joined, like Bhagavan Das and Lakshmi Moni and Krishna Bhamani and Nityananda and Narapatamaananda. They were in the class. And there were some others. I just don't remember the name. I got a list of names. People came after me and said, "Well, who are these people?" So from my memory, I made a list. I don't have it with me now, but they were in the class, and they all got 3 credits. They all graduated. I never asked anyone to drop out of school. No, I said, finish up, stay in class, keep going, because I wanted them to talk to other people. about, being on the campus and talk to other students. So they all, Bhagwan Das and Krishna Bhami, they all graduated. Nartamananda, they graduated. Burjan came before, actually he came early when I was teaching the experimental course. And he agreed to come in with me on a little cottage nearby, split the rent so we could set up a center. He was the first person.
And you were Professor Rupanuga.
Well, yeah, I only had a BA in psychology. I didn't have any advanced degrees. See, that wasn't a requirement. They
And
just had
you were reporting back to Prabhupada about how things were expanding.
Yeah, I was in touch. They were sending me some of Srila Prabhupada's transcripts while he was still working on the Gita. Before, when I was doing the experimental course, I used to get copies of Srila Prabhupada's transcript, and I would give class on that. I didn't have a Gita. We didn't have any Gita. The only Gita we had was Dr. Radhakrishnan. And that's the one we used for Gita classes at the storefront. And Srila Prabhupada said, don't read the purports. Because it was all impersonalism.
Right.
But the verses weren't too bad. So that's all we had. And Srila Prabhupada was working on the Gita. So,
this wasn't even hot off the press. This was pre-press Bhagavad Gita.
this is Dr. Radhakrishnan, very famous book in India.
And Prabhupada's transcripts that he was sending you.
And I didn't use that, but I used the transcripts I was getting from the store. From the devotees would send me things.
Okay.
See, I didn't have a Gita to go from, so all I just had to, and I was supposed to be giving something about transcendental meditation, for the experimental course. So I had to have something. I had, I think that's about all I had. And then the book came out for the credit course, but the credit course started, and then I had the book.
That was 1968 or 69?
I think that was, so I went there in February 68. It must have been the following semester, maybe the winter's fall semester. I had to wait a while.
And Prahladanandan Maharaj joined there too.
Oh, Pralananda, yeah, he was a yogi.
Hridai Chaitanya Prabhu, he was also a yogi. He was practicing Kriya Yoga before meeting Prabhupada. He was searching.
Kusakrata joined also.
Kushakrata.
Kusakrata. He was working at Goodwill. He was a Goodwill employee.
Wow. And so then how long did the Bhagavad Gita course at University of Buffalo go on for? A year or 2 years?
After I left, they went on they accepted a substitute. I'm not sure how long it went on. I know it went on at least another year after I left.
And then where did you go from there? Back to
New York, because GBC had been started in 1970, and I was GBC for the East Coast, all the way from Montreal and Ottawa down to Miami. I had 12 temples.
Wow.
So I was located in Buffalo, which is not central enough for my zone, so I had to leave Buffalo. And New York was much more accessible, place to operate from. So I went there, and while I was there, the temple president left, and I had no one to replace him, so I had to take it over.
Miami?
No, this is New York.
New York. So you became GBC and temple president at the same time?
Right.
Wow.
I was temple president 4 times as a GBC.
Simultaneously a GBC and temple president at the same time.
Yeah.
Wow.
We didn't have so many leaders, to choose from. We didn't have a, reserve. And somebody left, they were hard to replace. You should probably want the temple presidents to stay in place for life, They were important to Srila. They were the workhorses.
I saw that your name was first on the list. That was, I think, 10 initial GBCs, and you were on the top of the list.
There were 12.
Number 12.
There were 12.
There were 12.
Yeah.
Right.
I happened to be the first on the list because the only reason, not because I was special, but because I was already doing the work. I mean, devotees before the GBC was formed, devotees from Buffalo went out and opened Atlanta, New Orleans, uh, Detroit, and they helped in Toronto, and they opened, and they were also involved with two other farm projects. So that was all done. So because I was already doing the work, obviously Shil Prabhupada thought about me to put me on the list.
Wow, wow, wow. And you lasted 18 years as a GBC.
Yeah, I resigned in 89, 80, early 80, left late 88.
And you met Sadaputa while you were preaching in Buffalo that
Yeah,
he
Sadhu came, he was going to the University of, he was going to Cornell University working on his undergraduate degree. And we had sent some Sankirtan parties around. So apparently he'd seen us and he came down to see me when I was in Buffalo. And we had a couple of very nice meetings and I understood the importance of this person. And so I sent a couple of brahmacharis to go live with him while he was a student to make sure he stayed in the fold. He told the devotee later, he said, if Rupanuga hadn't sent those two men to live with me, I don't know where I'd be right now. So it did keep him in touch. And then after that, he went on working on his other degrees. But he and Madhava, I recruited Madhava in New York City after I went down there to be temple president. And he didn't want to use his PhD. He thought it was all Maya. I couldn't convince him. So I sent him to Buffalo for a year. And he came back after second initiation and he was ready to go.
So yeah, you helped to lay the foundation for the Bhaktivedanta Institute.
Yeah, Sariputta and they were two key members there, along with Sri Damodar. But Sri Damodar was the he was the leader. He was in charge of it.
I'd also like to introduce you to Ambarish Prabhu, not the Henry Ford grandson Ambarish, but this is the temple president of ISKCON Halifax. Ambarish Prabhu works in the digital world. He's become a black box right now. Maybe he will reveal his transcendental form. But
we're not having this meeting to talk about me. I'm just sort of an observer or a guest or something.
okay. And Vedavyas Prabhu, he's also here. He's raised his hand about something, and he's also become a black box. So
he's connecting to the audio. I don't know if he can hear us yet.
Okay.
Seems to be having trouble connecting.
I see. Okay. Yeah. So what I've done is I've pulled together a bunch of different quotes, primarily about the Sunday feast. That was the topic that Kruti wanted to discuss, and I also pulled up a bunch of quotes about being a temple president from Srila Prabhupada. Unfortunately, Kruti's not here yet, so maybe I'll just start addressing some of the points on temple president, and then if Rupanuga Prabhu would like to elaborate on any of these quotes, that would be super. And then if anyone else has questions based on what Srila Prabhupada and Rupanuga Prabhu has commented, then it can turn into a discussion. How does that sound to everybody? Does that sound agreeable? Kind of, sort of? Does that work?
Sounds good.
Okay, great. So, all right.
Well, I have a lot of letters to. I have 100 letters to Prabhupada, and a number of them have to do with management. Many of them do, but I didn't. I was prepared for this, so I didn't really pull them out. But I can remember pretty much what I think I might be able to help you.
Sure, I'm sure you can. I mean, if you'd rather just speak Rupanuga, I don't have to pull up any quotes, but if I pull up Prabhupada quotes,
No, I do much
that's
better answering questions. I mean,
okay.
that helps me
Great.
focus.
Okay, very good. So, so I found a quote here from Srila Prabhupada. He says, the first responsibility of the temple president is to ensure everyone is chanting 16 rounds a day. So this is a conversation with the GBC, May 25th, 72 in Los Angeles. I assume you must have been there, Rupanuga Prabhu.
I assume.
Okay, so Prabhupada says, but by argument, by words, by our methods, by our preaching, we have to convince. So, selected 15 men, not 12. It may increase more. Now we have got very many centers, but the duty is very responsible. So, for the center is concerned, the local president is indistinct man. The GBC can supervise that things are going on. The first management is that each and every member in the temple is chanting 16 rounds regularly and following the regulations. That's all. Otherwise, we have no. That is our spiritual strength. That must be executed. Haridas Thakur, such exalted personality, such advanced. Still, he is numerical counting even up to the point of his death. Therefore, he was given the Namacharya because so rigid. Even at the time of his death, Lord Chaitanya requested, now you can minimize. No, sir, I cannot minimize. And what is the number? 300,000. These are the examples. Sometimes, but the regulation is that if one day you cannot finish, you have to finish on the next day. But 16 rounds is not a very large number, the lowest. The lowest in India is 25. Here's 16 rounds. 25, not even 25. So the president, local president, must see that the members are chanting. So this way, the institution will be managed. Then it will make progress. That is spiritual strength, to observe the regulative principles and at least chant 16 rounds. Then you do other things. This is the biggest institution of spiritual activities. So every one of us should be spiritually strong. Otherwise, superficially, if we want to manage, it will not be possible. Did you like to say anything about that, Rupanuga?
Well, I remember a letter he sent to Kurandar.
Omega.
What year was that? Early 70s. Hi, Bol.
That's Vedavyas Prabhu. He's a student of Satsarup Maharaj, who I guess you spent quite a bit of time at the storefront with, Rupanuga.
So anyway,
Okay, sorry. Yes, go on.
Kurandar had written a letter to him asking about how to better assure the devotees were chanting their rounds. And the reply, the letter was rather, it's a classic actually, a single space for several pages, and it has to do with management of the society. The GBC was formed in 70, right? 1970. So the beginning of the letter has to do with getting the devotees to, the way Shubham explained it, I'll paraphrase it now, that what he said was, if they're engaged according to their psychophysical nature, then they're considered chanting as part of their work. So this is one of the main functions of a temple president, was to make sure that a devotee was engaged according to his capacity, his proclivity, which we call psychophysical nature or varna. So what Shubham was saying, if a person is properly engaged, then he'll perceive the chanting as part of his work. And that was his answer to how to make sure the devotees were properly chanting, because if they were properly engaged. So that's one of the main functions of a temple president and a GBC. But a temple president was to make sure that someone that's doing their service was happy with that service and was properly engaged. Not that just anybody put a square peg in a round hole. No, you get the person engaged according to their natural life. It's just like, I'll give you another example. One devotee went to see Srila Prabhupada. This was later on. Just a story I'm repeating from him, and I got it from him. I think maybe on the net. He went to see Srila Prabhupada to ask him what he could do to help. What could he do to serve Srila Prabhupada? And he said, well, Srila Prabhupada said, well, what do you want to do for Krishna? He said, I want to make mridungas.
That's Isha.
Yes, make them non-breakable. So then he said, he went out and he made the molds and made these fiberglass mridungas, and he had them all stacked in the back of his truck, pickup truck. And he was taking them. He was going to put the next stage, start putting ends on everything, but he was transporting them all in the back of his truck. And the back fell down, the tail fell down, and all the Mridungas rolled out, all the shells rolled out onto the highway. And he's doing,
Oh, wow.
50, he's doing 50 miles an hour, and they're boing, 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 all these, they're all bouncing around the highway. So he pulls over and he gathers them all up and puts them in the back of the truck. And he said, I noticed something. They didn't break. So
Huh.
he accomplished that. So he had made these shells that withstood hitting a highway at 50 miles an hour, right? It didn't crack. And that's what Shilpapa wanted. He wanted unbreakable Mridunga.
So that was a breakthrough.
Yeah, it was. And then he went on and finished the job. You know, we had the clay Mridungas, and when you go on Harinam and you go out in the street, there's so many ways they can break because they're so fragile. A lot of times they're patched up, you know, but this was a big jump. As far as the temple president's duties, I can just explain to you what I always felt was my duty was to facilitate the service of other devotees to Srila Prabhupada. That was my main purpose, was to facilitate others' service to Srila Prabhupada. I saw myself as a servant of all the devotees in the temple. My service to them was to encourage them, provide what they needed. They needed a truck, they needed, you know, shadam, they needed books, whatever they needed to serve Srila Prabhupada. At that time, the whole movement was very, very much focused on Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. And it was just me. Everyone was thinking of service to Srila Prabhupada. So the real requirement for a temple president then, and I still believe it's still now, but that's my opinion, that was to focus people on service to Srila Prabhupada, the founder of Charya.
Ambarish Prabhu, as a budding temple president, do you have any question on that point?
Thank you, Rupanaga Prabhu, for giving this insight. How do we make sure that you said you engage devotees into the service of Prabhupada?
Yeah.
Can you give more details on that with examples?
Well, I just
I
mentioned,
know you just mentioned about the Mridanga, but right now the congregation has been changed, and mainly so many times the congregation members, they want higher authority. They work for a few years, and let's say they donate good amount of money, then they feel that they should be on a higher position, right? Decision making position. How do we handle that situation?
well, my main point before was engaging a person according to their psychophysical nature. You have to know a person. You have to know what they're capable of. First of all, you have to know that they're serious. If they want a position, you know, first deserve, then desire, Srila Prabhupada said. So they have to be qualified for whatever they're asking for. And just wanting, because I've been in time, this is not a corporation, you know, this is not a business corporation where you're in for a while and now it's time for promotion. That's not the right attitude. That's not a good congregational attitude either. To think, well, I've been around long enough now, and I deserve some responsibility. Where's the proof? Besides time, you can be in Maya for a long time too.
No, but I've donated thousands and dollars, so I've bought some seniority, haven't I?
Well, money doesn't talk in this con. At least it didn't when I was there.
Because you didn't have any.
It didn't buy you a post. In fact, look, GBC, we only had a chairman and a secretary for 1 year. We didn't have a treasurer because we didn't have a treasurer. We didn't need a treasurer. We didn't need one. We didn't have a treasurer.
You didn't have any money.
There was no. We didn't have a treasury, and we didn't have a treasurer. We just had one chairman and one secretary was appointed for 1 year, and then a new one was elected the following year. GBC ran entirely different. In those days, we would meet. The first thing we would do is we would have a period of old business, and then a period of new business. The old business would be to go over the resolutions that were made the previous year to see what had been accomplished. Every resolution was good for 1 year, except for long-term projects like Krishna Bala and Mayapur. They were long-term projects. Sometimes they had a resolution that would go on for years. But ordinarily, every resolution was good for 1 year because we were supposed to come back and report on the accomplishments. So the first business was, the old business was to discuss last year's resolutions and what had been accomplished. And the persons who were responsible were reporting. Then when that was over and everything, we would have new resolutions made, or new proposals would be made, and on a simple majority, they would be voted in as resolutions. And then in the evening, we'd go meet with Shri Prabhupada and read to him all of our resolutions, and he would make comments. We generally accepted them. Sometimes he would give us something for the next day. The meeting generally went on for 3 days.
I see that Mangalananda Prabhu has his hand up. Thank you very much for using that system, Mangalananda Prabhu, because that helps to helps the continuity, the flow to go. So,
Did I answer the question?
okay, let's check with Ambarish Prabhu. Did that answer? Was that? Did you need more elaboration, or was that helpful, Ambarish?
It's just one quick question, Prabhuji. How do we gauge? How do we know that this person wants to do this particular seva which he is enjoying? What is the process of discovering that nectar from that particular devotee who wants to offer it to Prabhupada?
You mean to understand whether he's competent to do the service he wants to do?
And what he likes to do. Let's say we have prasad, we have pujari seva. There are so many sevas.
Yeah, well, the main thing is, it's like Shri Prabhupada said, what do you want to do for Krishna? In other words, what do you love to do? What is it, like you could say to a person, what is it you've done in your life? What project you ever done? You really love to do it so that everything else is neglected. You forgot about everything else. You really want to concentrate on that. You have to figure out what the person really wants to do and match it with what he's asking. You see? You know what I'm saying? So you have to use a little intelligence. You have to find out, well, what is your real proclivity? What do you really want to do for Krishna? What do you want to do for Shri Prabhupada? So that way you can, vet a little bit, but you also have to have intelligence to understand a person. If you're a temple president, you have to understand human nature.
What's your passion?
Yeah, would you use the word passion, or what do you love to do the most in your life? What have you ever done that you really like more than anything else you've ever done? And see if you can match it, or see something that's subsumed under it or something like that. I mean, there's certain ways,
Yep, makes sense.
You have to know the person yourself. You have to know the person and have some knowledge of the personality.
Mm-hmm.
You can
there's no book you can consult. There's no hard and fast rule.
Can I say something?
Mangalananda had his hand up just before you, Vedavyas Prabhu. So
me actually.
Can we go? Okay, it's Hridai Chaitanya. We'll come to you in a second, Vedavyas Prabhu. Just doing this in order. Go ahead, Hridai Chaitanya Prabhu.
No, let Vedavyas Prabhu speak.
Okay, all right. It's handed over to you, Veda.
Okay. This is interesting because the answer that Rupanuga you gave us is very, very broad, and it's very rather pleasing. But I have a question regarding Ambarish, just to help us to relate to him. How did he become temple president? First of all, you don't have a temple yet, right? So how do you become temple president, and who empowered you to do such a thing, and how did you? That's it. Start with that.
Yes, Prabhu, it was like we were in a meeting for considering who is going to be the board of director for ISKCON Halifax. And there was some shuffling going on at that time, and we were in a meeting. And in that meeting, it was decided that I will serve as a temple president. So out of nowhere, I was given that title. So that's the story. We don't have a temple, and that's true. We don't have temple.
But you're president of the ISKCON Halifax.
Yes,
That-
Prabhuji.
And now it's up to you to develop it.
And the help of all the other devotees.
Okay.
And
So-
that's why I organized this session to help you.
That's
Yes,
right.
thank-
And
thank you so much,
one of the reason you became such a, it's because you distributed books on the mall and by your table, and you inspired others to also chant and be part of this this transcendental movement, right?
And also beside Mangalananda is basically at least in this period of time of this preaching effort, the first one to get initiated, to have committed a little more seriously.
Okay, so Rupanuga Prabhu, so if I understand, it's just like they're starting in Buffalo in the 60s, right? It's a bit like this, isn't it?
What's that? I can't understand. What's the point?
It's just that they're starting up. That's what I'm feeling. They
Oh,
start.
one way to become a temple president is to start one. Okay. And nobody has to point you. You don't have to vote. I mean, Srila Prabhupada approved of my going to Buffalo, and if I establish a temple there, well, that was a temple president. That's simple. But we're talking about later a vote. I assume a majority vote would pick a person from a number of persons. And that's why Srila Prabhupada ran the GBC, right, on a majority vote, 50% or more, that's it. So obviously, there was a discussion and an election or selection, and maybe other persons were candidates, but somehow or another, the vote was in favor of one particular devotee.
So okay, now it's just like once you got the star, like the sheriff, in the old days, then you have to run with it. And this is looking for inspiration, what to do next. Basically, that's how I feel about this meeting, isn't it?
Well, look, are we talking about someone who has a temple or doesn't? Yeah, I mean, he's pointed to start something. Is that what you're pointing at? You've been made
No.
temple president of a
Actually,
country?
that was the point that I wanted to bring.
Huh?
Go ahead, Prabhu.
Okay, so the situation is we're the situation in Halifax in Canada is that there's quite a big influx of Indian immigration now in Halifax, and so it's a city that's becoming a lot of Indians are coming. And when Mangalananda came here, basically there was nothing going on, practically speaking. And then he started to connect with different member of Indian congregation and become convinced of Krishna. But at the stage we're at right now, even the people that did organize the Ratha Yatra and actually showed a lot of enthusiasm, the level of sadhana is there's very few devotees that chant 16 rounds. Some of these people don't chant at all, they're just enthusiastic to serve. And even though we hope that we will be able to develop and get also Canadian devotees and etc., the situation now is basically we have a group of quite materially successful but very new Indian devotees. And so what would be I just wanted to, so you understand the situation. So there's no building. The Sunday feast is a lot of basically a studio that they're renting every week. And surprisingly, the program became quite successful. Towards the end, there was about 100 people coming to Sunday feast. So the situation is very different in one sense that even of what I've been using to, definitely what Vedic has been doing to, what to speak of what you've seen in the early days. So what would be your advice in this kind of situation? Because the people that we are even going to put in position, maybe the guy doesn't chant yet, and it's I guess from what I hear from you, we should start there. And but anyway, if you would like to elaborate or
All right, well, look, if you're forming a temple, I'm assuming you're forming an incorporation, an ISKCON Halifax. Is that correct?
is that incorporated?
We are incorporated.
All right. Incorporation requires officers. Right?
Excuse me, can you
The
repeat?
incorporation requires officers.
Okay, yes.
Okay, an ISKCON Corporation is not a business, it's a spiritual entity. So the spiritual entity officers have to have spiritual qualifications. So if someone's going to be in charge, they have to do 16 rounds a day, assuming they're initiated. Okay, a person's going to be an officer, he has responsibility, and his first responsibility is a spiritual one. He has to set example. So if it seems to me you have a temple, it's just that it's in a rented stage, and you have a corporation. So I don't know how you set up the corporation up, but a temple requires a president, it requires a treasurer, and it can have a secretary. I mean, the officers that Srila Prabhupada originally arranged in his temples were that. That's what he arranged. Okay. Later on, fancy things were added like vice presidents and, board members. We didn't have any boards. There weren't boards. There were boards. There was temple presidents, and they had a secretary and they had a treasurer. As time went on, things became more elaborate. But if you have an organization it's an incorporated organization, then you have to have officers, and the officers of an ISKCON incorporation should be qualified to be that. Right? So they may become the president or they may or not, but whatever they are, they have to be meeting Srila Prabhupada's standards for being a temple officer.
Okay.
Simple. So the officer you pick, he's got to have some, first of all, basic standard, like Srila Prabhupada was saying, temple presidents go around and make everybody who's chanting 16 rounds. He's got to be chanting himself. And the officers should be chanting. And there should be some leadership qualities, some capacity to inspire devotees to serve. But that's another thing. I'm just saying the qualifications have to be there. You can't have an officer who doesn't chant 16 rounds.
Yeah.
So
Mangalananda, go ahead.
yeah, just to give a bit more of the history of ISKCON Halifax. So we are not the devotees who incorporated ISKCON Halifax. That was done by Nitai Ram. It was actually many years ago that this ISKCON Halifax was incorporated, but that wave of devotees here ended up going away. And for some time, things were dormant here, but the legal status was maintained every year to
Good.
keep it incorporated.
Yeah.
But so now we're starting like a new wave of ISKCON Halifax. So it's already incorporated, and we have a board of directors, which are all initiated devotees, but they live in different provinces. They're not here locally.
Well, let me make a comment here. When Srila Prabhupada first incorporated New York, all right, he just got a number of persons who were coming around to sign up on it. It was really not, if he did not give much, shall we say,
Focus.
importance to directors. I mean, some of the directors who signed were just like people like you're talking about, not even, he needed people to sign up so he could get a 501c3D, get the movement off the ground, right? So that initial thing, but after that, Srila Prabhupada never, at least in my experience, ever stressed any board of direction. And he never stressed a board that would be above the temple president or something like. There was always, the temples were incorporated and run by the temple president, the treasurer, and the secretary. And that was it. I mean, we didn't even have boards of directors, okay? That didn't happen until much, much later. But for years and years, it was always just the temple president, the temple officers. They were the ones in charge of the incorporated temple.
Mm-hmm. And also, it is my understanding that there was 3 devotees. Basically, recently there was Ambarish Prabhu, yourself, and another devotee, Savya Sachin, who unfortunately some unfortunate event, his wife died, and he's not able to be involved anymore. But these were like 3
pillars.
what
Yeah, you
want
were the
to say.
three what you call the three directors to incorporate it, I guess. I don't know what it is. But right now you're talking about running a temple. Who's going to run the temple? Not people situated in another province or something over there. You're talking about
Yeah,
people,
of course.
like hands-on people who I would assume live in the premises or right next to it.
Yeah.
So at the moment, I would say from what I observe, I'm coming a newcomer, and this is basically Ambarish and Mangalananda, who are the people who inspired the people, and they have help from a few very qualified, in materially qualified Indian devotees who are quite successful managers, etc. But that's the state we're at. It's just a very budding mission. That's what we're working with at the moment.
Well, I mean, okay, I'm not here to tell you how to run things, okay? I'm just giving you advice based on my experience.
Yeah.
Okay, and what I learned from Srila Prabhupada, I really can't do more than that. Okay, I'm trying to pass on the mood we were in. I don't care who's involved. When you choose a person to be a temple president or a secretary treasurer, that's your choice, whoever he is. He just needs to have qualifications to do that. He has to chant his rounds, to follow the principles. He has to show some leadership quality, some initiative, some enthusiasm, some initiative. Okay, so you must have three men like that. If you do, and whether you're renting a building or you're in a garage or wherever you are and you're incorporated, you've been incorporated all these years, so you've already done that.
Mhm.
So what's the problem? I don't understand what the problem is. If you don't have anybody to chant 16 rounds, you got a problem. But if you do have some people who are actually performing as devotees and assuming they were initiated, first of course, they have to be initiated to be in an officer in a temple anyway, right? I can't imagine that otherwise. So you have three initiated men, one's a secretary, one's a treasurer, and their job is to, manage the temple. And I don't know what a board of directors is going to do. It might be just like a shall we say, an official way to, just like Srila Prabhupada.
We don't want a board of
Well,
directors.
the board is.
Well, you don't need a listen.
in
Listen.
We don't want one.
You don't need a board of directors to run a temple. All I can just say is the way temples ran in ISKCON for many, many years. Board of directors was, if anybody, they were just somebody who incorporated, and that was it. They were incorporators or whatever. They could be officers or not,
It's
But
a
they didn't have
legal
any power.
requirement.
Listen, they didn't have any power. They didn't come in
For a
and say,
nonprofit organization.
I mean, in
So-
Canada, the requirement is not just secretary.
You need to have a board of directors and they have to be separate from the management structure, like the local management. It's like they're legally responsible for the organization, but they're not directly involved in the management of it. So it's like you have an annual meeting to let the board know kind of what's going on throughout the year. It's
Prabhu,
like a legal.
you're saying according to the Canadian government, is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So that's a new thing that that's needed in the structure for a nonprofit organization. That's why the board
have
is.
to have a board of directors.
Yeah.
Okay, but if you do it the way Srila Prabhupada wanted, those board of directors don't, like you say, have anything to do with the management. It's a technicality. It's a formality.
Yeah.
It's a legal formality. Has nothing to do with necessarily having any spiritual, maybe they don't chant 16 rounds, what I'm saying? But the persons who are managing, they have to meet certain standards. But the board of directors is not supposed to come and tell anybody what to do, how to run the temple or, how to spend money. That's my understanding. It's a technical thing the government's requiring, but doesn't mean you have to change the way things should be run according to Srila Prabhupada. I mean, he's the founder Acharya.
So then the situation is, as Sridhar Prabhu mentioned, we had one other devotee here, Savi Sachan Prabhu. He came here recently with his family. He was involved in the management, very good. But then some personal difficulty happened. Now he's stepped down from management. Other than him, there's myself and Ambarish. We're the only two initiated devotees in the community. So yeah, it's just the two of us who are doing kind of the managerial things, organizing programs. So we don't have other initiated devotees here.
All right.
So yes, that's just
So
the
you have a president and you have a secretary or a treasurer, and you just don't have a third person. That's all.
yeah.
Two people as an organization. So you've got to have an organization, and you got to have a responsibilities that you're doing, and eventually you will develop persons who will be capable and competent and eager to serve in some responsible position.
So yeah, that's the next step for us, is qualifying and training up and cultivating our community just to find those individuals who are responsible and who are willing to come to that next step. And so how would you advise us, how would you recommend that we go about that and identify key individuals? And
you preach.
Yeah.
You preach. You see who understands what you're saying and who can give you some feedback. And first of all, you two have to take some responsibility. If you're going to run a temple, you got to run it the right way. You got to be temple officers. One of you's got to be president, and one of you's got to be treasurer. So decide what you want to do. Don't make co-president. You don't need to do that. It's a whole other thing. But just be a president, be a treasurer, and understand that's who you are, and then take it from there. I mean, if you're talking about organizing an incorporated temple, that's what you do. I mean, you don't have an incorporated temple, ISKCON, unless you have officers.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, have your officers, and you may consider a formality, whatever you like, but there's got to be some sort of a temple management, okay? And work from there. And as far as choosing people, well, who gets it? Who gets the mission? Who understands what the movement's about? What you're supposed to do? What Srila Prabhupada wanted? I mean, who has any knowledge? See? Who has any insight? Who has any understanding of what you're trying to do? It's not a formality. We're not up for election.
Mm-hmm.
In the old days, Srila Prabhupada, someone would come forward and want to open a temple in Santa Fe. Okay. Srila Prabhupada said, yeah, go ahead, just do it. He wanted all the temples to be separately managed. He wanted the temple president and officers to become expert in everything that is required to run a temple. Expert in the finances, getting the proper insurance, working it out with the authorities, making organization, getting the books out, all the things the temple presidents have to do. And enthusing the devotees, having good classes, having proper deity worship, all this stuff is coming under the temple president's responsibility. To see the standards, to see the deity worship is properly done, to see the persons are competent, to see the cooking is proper. If you want to use the standards that I used, I'll tell you, we never cooked anything and offered the deities that wasn't cooked in ghee. I don't care how poor we were. It was always ghee. Always ghee. And the people who came to the temple, they got ghee too. Everybody got what the deities got. And we weren't rich, but somehow or another, Krishna provided ghee. So you know what? If you set the right standards to begin with, you'd be better off. Just don't compromise. Srila Prabhupada I have a whole thing, half an inch thick of Srila Prabhupada's lectures on compromise, i.e., don't do it. So don't compromise your principles. Don't compromise. Set your goals, set your ideals, and live up to them. But don't compromise just to make an organization, just to attract people, just to get money. If you do that, you'll end up with nothing. You'll end up being impoverished. But if you do it the right way, Krishna will send you money. I mean, am I making sense? I'm just talking.
Oh yeah. You are making
Absolutely, Prabhu.
You are making
I mean,
plenty.
listen, I can see two men in front of me. My intuition is that you're both quite competent. Okay. Just do it. Just do it.
They already did a wonderful attempt to have a first Rath Yatra. There was 2,000 people coming.
1,800 plates of prasad.
Yeah.
We're already doing it, you know, what's it?
And I was there. I'm not from their area. I just we're just a few of us. We want to back them up. And I spoke with the mayor. You know, I told the mayor, you know, these Indian people, they offer you respect. You know, do you know why? It's because you're supposed to represent God. And I said, you this you're supposed to represent God, and therefore your decisions that you're gonna make in the future should be for the welfare of all these people. So you got some inspiration from a spiritual point of view from these people. So he says, he says, actually, I'm not God. I says, obviously. So then after this, he actually gave his speech, and in his speech, he says, we welcome people from other places and keep your culture because we need it. So he was said, then I told him that you are the reason you're going to sweep he came to sweep the ground for Jagannath to come in. I says, it's just to understand that even a mayor is a servant of God. So anyway, at least he got that from me.
You're preaching on the high levels, Prabhu. Preaching with the man.
And he said, yes, here in Halifax, we welcome people from all around the world, and they should bring all their traditions with them. They should bring everything with them, and they should bring their food, and they should bring it to my office. So I was thinking, since he loves prasadam, this is very good way he can be our bhakta. Because Kruti and the other Matajis in your community, they're fabulous cooks.
Yeah.
So once a week, we should bring the mayor of
Yeah, but actually, you already told them to do this. Did anybody went already to go and give them prasad?
To the mayor?
Yeah,
No, but we should.
yeah.
Yes.
Like soon, like tomorrow, or the day after. Just
Yeah.
thank you very much for participating in the
Yes.
program.
Yeah, let's do it.
Just one thing I need to say for I don't want to divert too much from Halifax, but here we are in Granby, which is 1 hour from Montreal. And our situation here is this, that we don't actually have an ISKCON. We don't have, we only have ISKCON principles in the sense that we love Prabhupada and his teachings as much as we understand what it is. And we're participating and hearing and chanting together. And we have a few people now along with us that chant 16 rounds and follow the 4 regular principles. And I didn't get them involved in initiation yet, but I'm just taking my time for this. But this is where we're at ourselves. We're not into a corporation, we're just into inspiration. But we understand that eventually we'll have to get together on that level. We have one gentleman, he has a farm, and I told him, please get some cows, and he did it. And
He's here. He's participating right now. Francis is here.
yeah,
Can I read something to you from
Please.
Prabhupada?
please.
This is from a letter he wrote in 1967 to Ray Rama, who was the first editor of BTG. Ray Rama had written him a letter, and this is an answer to his letter. He said, with reference to the boys holding kirtans independently, our propaganda should be like that. That people may open different centers of their own, or each and every householder may have his own class at home. Not that everyone is required to join the society. They may take the idea from the society and introduce it in their private life. And if possible, let us sell to them the paraphernalia of kirtan, cartels, madanga, deities, and so on. So what he's saying here is that the foundation starts with individuals. At one time, he said, toward the end, he said, don't open any more temples, just open restaurants. And when you get enough people coming to the restaurants that really support, then you get a temple.
Wow.
And we've been parachuting people in, to a particular place. But what Srila Prabhupada is teaching us is the local people are the ones that you build a temple with, if you're going to have a temple. And the way to do it, my humble opinion is this. I'll read you another thing from Srila Prabhupada. This is from a lecture in 72 in Los Angeles. The Krishna consciousness movement comprises all sides of life. It is not that a stereotype churchianity weekly going to the church and come back. No, this is embracing all sides of life. But the only aim is to how to go home and back to God. So what Srila Prabhupada is saying here is this is a cultural movement. So it's not a religion. It's a postgraduate study of religion. You see, and a cultural movement has to have roots in people's private lives. Otherwise, you don't have a culture. The Srila Prabhupada introduced a cultural movement and an educational institution. And the cultural movement was an alternative. The good mayor is wanting that alternative. He wants more alternatives. In Canada, they need a lot of alternatives right now. So what I'm saying is, you've got already what Srila Prabhupada wrote about here. You've got people are participating. And for you, sir, the things are for you to start at home with the people you have at home and have them take Srila Prabhupada's teachings and books into their own homes, okay? And practice at home, chant at home, chant with their friends and relatives like Srila Prabhupada recommended here. See, that gives you some strength. And from that, you can build up, more and more, and if it leads to a temple, okay, but you don't, like he says in another place, you don't need to have a big building, a big mosque, or a big stadium. You don't need that. He said actually, he was talking in London, in Conway Hall, gave a lecture. He was saying, they don't have to come here to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They can have a picture of Panchatattva in their home and worship Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. A very simple process, he says. Have a picture of Lord Chaitanya and chant Hare Krishna. They don't have to come here, he said, to see Lord Chaitanya. They could have him at home. And there was a time when he actually told devotees he wanted them to go door to door with Nitai Gauranga deities, try to sell to people as happy dolls.
Yeah.
As happy dolls. So this movement is a grassroots movement. It didn't start with a temple, it started with a storefront. Okay. And now when people come, there's all kinds of arrangements and all kinds of bureaucracy and so many things. But that's the form. But the real substance is in people's hearts and what they do with it. So you're in a position now where you can follow what Srila Prabhupada said back in '67. What happened after this, as we emphasized, we emphasized book distribution and opening, establishing temples like that. But this idea of perfection at home, this idea to get people to take the idea of home was sort of backburnered. Now it's coming out because look what's happening in this world. People are being restricted more and more to their homes. People are finding they don't have the same kind of freedom they had before. And a lot of people are taking shelter of their own homes for peace of mind. So now's the time to talk to them. Yeah, you want to be free of anxiety, free of distress, and get more of a peace of mind in your own home. Chant Hare Krishna, and we'll meet on Sunday. You know what I mean? Take it home with you. Because if you do that, you'll establish a culture in Canada with roots. A culture has to have roots in people's private lives, not in a temple on Sunday and then come back on Sunday. Srila Prabhupada explained that when somebody sees a deity, sees the face of the deity, either on Rath Yatra or Lord Jagannath, or in the temple, they become freed of all their past sinful activities on the spot. And that goes back millions of years. So a person is Srila Prabhupada said, he's liberated. That person is liberated by seeing the face of the Lord, or a simple chanting of one name of the holy name of Krishna will relieve him. But what happens is people don't know that they're liberated. See, so they go home from Sunday feast and they do the same stuff they did last week. He likened it to the elephant taking a big bath very seriously and coming out on the shore and throwing the dust on himself. You see, so my point is, times have changed. We want this movement. Like the last letter I got from Srila Prabhupada was in April 77. And in the last part of the letter, he dictated that he wanted to come to America, and he wanted to call all his leaders there, and he wanted to strengthen the movement so that it would endure perpetually. Of course, he didn't make it past London. We had planned to receive him in Washington, D.C. We had planned he was going to take a flight from London to America after Janmashtami, but he had to go back to Vrindavan.
And then he was going to come to Gita Nagari, right?
He was going to come to Gitanagara and call his leaders. And Srila Prabhupada, he was traveling on a gurney across the tops of the seats in a plane, okay? He was
Wow.
supine. He was supine. He traveled like that, okay? He was going to come to America. He was so determined that he went from India to London on the way to America. And he was going to come after Janmashtami. So what was he going to do? What was he going to say to all the leaders? How to make the movement perpetual? It doesn't take much to figure it out. 2 + 2 = 4. If you add up what he's already given us, it comes out that he wants a cultural movement with roots. That's how a movement endures perpetually. It has to have roots. It just can't be a superficial thing. So what I just heard from you, Veda, is it? You come on here as Veda.
Veda Vyas. Yeah.
Okay. What I heard from you is that you already got a root thing going. So you build up from then and get people to understand that this is a personal movement for them, for self-realization, for themselves, their families. You know, it's not just a matter of joining an organization. That could be part of it, but everybody has to know what they're doing and why they're doing it. Right? So you're at the point where I can see what these two things I read to you from Srila Prabhupada. You're right there. You're there. You're building up, following there. But if you really want it to be solid, if you really want whatever you're doing to be solid, then they're going to have to take it home. Not just meet with you or once a week. They're going to have to understand the purpose of the movement is for them to make it part, as Srila Prabhupada said, of their daily affairs. He said this movement is not churchianity. What? He said, is we going to the church or the temple? And then come back again, facing all sides of life, which means they take it home with them. And that preaching has been lacking for 45 years, in my humble opinion. On a Sunday feast, if I were giving a Sunday feast lecture this next Sunday, I would tell them, take it home. This is intended for you, and your family, and your friends, and your life. If you chant a few minutes every day before you go to work, you're going to change your life. Right?
Totally.
Is that preaching? Okay, so that's what I am advising you from my experience. Do that and you'll get a solid following and you'll build up strength, because people, like Srila Prabhupada told Karandar, engage them according to the psychophysical nature and they'll consider the chanting part of their work. So you get them engaged as part of their family life. And that it'll stick. It'll stick to their kids.
Yeah, our next process is that because we are with Francis, this gentleman that is on the, and he has a cow. Now we're looking forward to grow our own food and enhance our sadhana together.
Now that's another thing. Srila Prabhupada emphasized this, and was another thing that went over everybody's head. Okay, was self-sufficiency.
Yes.
He wanted the movement to not to be dependent on the economy of a bunch of mudhas. Okay. He wanted that to be he wanted it to be independent economically. And that can be done if there's a agricultural urban basis for it.
Just
You
yeah.
don't like that. And there's another example to set for self-sufficiency.
I'm a seed keeper.
What?
I'm a seed keeper.
Yes.
I keep seeds.
Good. Oh, you make you see, that's very important. You have your own seeds. You don't depend on these other seeds.
Oh, yes.
Mostly hybrids. The hybrid seeds you can't use and reproduce again. So you save. I did this for 5 years. I did an organic farm. What was it called?
Murari Sevak?
No. This is my own place on the other side of Alachua. Years and years ago, I had about for 5 years. I did an organic program that went to the Gainesville Farmers Market. It was an organic market program, and I grew stuff, and I went there and sold it. So I know you can do it. You can grow. I used to walk out my back door and pick dinner. So and if you can, the self-sufficiency adds so much strength to what you're doing. Right now, governments all over the world, in so many ways, are trying to make people more and more dependent. The more dependent you are, the more you control. See? But we're free. We're free. Our knowledge brings freedom. And Srila Prabhupada tells us that we're not supposed to be subordinate to mundane projects or mundane affairs or mundane politics. So one way to do that is to become self-sufficient. Have our own property, like you're doing. So when I hear this, I feel even more confident in what you're doing, because you're touching on an area that Srila Prabhupada was very dear to him, and that is self-sufficiency. He wanted that all over the world. He really did. But it didn't work out that way.
I just want to go ahead. Sorry.
Only a few places. You see, the problem was in the past, and this is important about project. I don't know how much land you have, but the problem was always in the past how to pay the mortgage. Okay. So all the devotees would end up spending more time out collecting money than they would be doing agriculture. And the other thing was when the householders came to take part into a project, they didn't have any security. The management changed, then they would have to be kicked out or something. And then they had no. It's like I was walking with Srila Prabhupada and Kirtananda in New Vrindavan. And Srila Prabhupada said to Kirtananda, "How much acreage you given to householders?" And he was silent. And Srila Prabhupada said, "Each householder should have 5 acres and a cow." Of course, they never did that, but that was a blueprint Srila Prabhupada was giving for farm projects. But you don't have a farm project. But the point is, you have facility for growing your own food, which is very important.
Francis, can you get the cows on the camera? Are you able to?
It's I have to take 2 minutes to go there because actually I'm in the house cooking for my.
He has cows?
Yeah, show us your cows.
I'm going right now.
Okay, good.
Let's show the cows. Let's see the cows.
Yes. two big Jersey cows and there's a baby calf inside one of the cows.
Jersey cows give the best milk. They have the most cream.
Wow.
They're the smallest breed. They're the smallest, but they give the most cream milk. Any of them. The second to them is like a Guernsey. Then you got brown Swiss. Then you got the black and whites. They give a lot, but not much cream. And the brown Swiss, they give almost as much, but more cream. And then you got the Jersey, and you got the Guernseys, and then you got the Jerseys. The Jerseys produce more cream in their milk than any other breed that I know of. I mean, that's the American. I'm talking about the American.
Right. I just wanted to comment when Srila Prabhupada was in London and he was supposed to come to DC and then Gita Nagari, Abhiram Prabhu told me that was the place where Prabhupada made the famous statement that 50% of my mission is not done. That's my only regret. And that is to, live off the land and self-sufficiently. And Abhiram asked Prabhupada, how do you plan to do that? He said, I will go with you to Gita Nagari and I will sit down with you on the land and I will teach you how to live. But he never made it to Gita Nagari, unfortunately. Okay, so Francis is taking us into
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're back again. You disappeared.
I'm sorry, Rupanuga Prabhu. I just disappeared from the scene. But I really appreciate what you said, and now I'm back. I'm not sure where we're at, Lam, but
No, I asked Francis to show us the cows, and he's
Yes.
gone into, and
And,
Rupanuga's fired up to see the cows. Go ahead, Hriday.
Rupanuga Prabhu just told it's bad that you were not there because he was just getting into the point how Prabhupada was promoting self-sufficiency
oh
and
yes,
growing
yes,
food and all that, and that
yes.
you know yeah.
I'm
Actually,
reading the conversations now. I'm reading the conversations with Prabhupada, and definitely there's a few statements which is very, very clear and powerful in that direction. And
Here's the cows. Here's the cows. Okay,
I
go
don't
ahead.
know how to put. She's upset with the dog, so I have to put the dog away. But I don't know how to put the camera on the other.
have to get rid of that dog, man.
What's the name of the cow? What's the name?
Chandra Moon.
Chandramukhi.
Moon.
Chandramoon.
Hey,
And also we have Sukadev also.
Ah.
Sukadev is the bull, the small calf, but he's becoming bigger than the mother.
wow.
Okay.
He was really long to be born. That's why he was named Sukadev.
So if you speak, Francis, then you'll have the main screen so we can see the cow. Then the screen will get bigger if you speak. So
Okay,
please speak.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
We can see it. We can see it.
No,
These cows are beautiful.
I think we always have to remember that Krishna called his planet the planet of the cows,
Yes.
Goloka Vrindavan. Krishna's cow, he named his planet Goloka Vrindavan.
Hare Krishna.
Jai.
Do you see them?
Yes, beautiful.
Yes, they are so beautiful. Thank
And
you
one
very
of them is pregnant.
Very well.
You see how just contemplating the cows make us happy?
Yes.
That's because Shri Baba knew that. He knew that. He wanted us to become happier by becoming self-sufficient. See?
Actually, I'd like to say there's something about Vedavyas Prabhu. He was a brahmachari for 28 years. He joined at the age of 16 years old, and he got married late. And when he got married, he decided to take gardening as an occupation, growing food, because he needed to find an occupation, and he knew that it was important to Srila Prabhupada. And now he's extremely successful. He's working for the city. They grow like three tons of vegetable every year. He's got 40 volunteers, and they have their own project with the 6 greenhouse and 1 acre of land, gardens, and you have such a big network now with all the people growing food, and it's very, very encouraging. And he's become quite an expert. He's lecturing in different places. He's a seed keeper. I grow like 57 types of tomatoes, 30 types of squash, everything traditional, species. He's keeping all very pure genetics. So we're very, very fortunate to have him around.
Yeah. Those are called heirloom seeds, right? The pure ones.
Heirloom seed would be the proper, okay.
Yes.
Heirloom seeds.
And now you see the manifestation of psychophysical nature, a true Vaishya Vaishnava. You have to give
He's more like a Brahman whose area of expertise is
Vaishnava. So
agriculture.
the point is, now you've got something to show people. How far is it from where you live in the city? I mean, is this how many acres they have?
It's
Was he?
about 18 acres, I think, because I know in Quebec they say the measurement is in arpent, but I know it's I think it's about 18 acres.
Anyway, you've got something to show people.
Yeah.
That's very important.
I thought that we had to have some basis first before we go deeper into reaching out. Now we have a few people who are very serious. They're serious about chanting Hare Krishna, so this is very good for us. And also, we have since we got you and you are senior to us, we don't have anybody senior to tell anything to Gaura, but I'd like to take advantage to ask you we offering Gaura a place to stay in this farm, and Gaura is living in Ontario alone in their house with people who are drinking and smoking, and we want to get him out of here. Can you please say a few words to encourage him to come and join us?
And Gaura, it would be very good for you, Gaura. There is no internet there. There's no Wi-Fi.
So we want
background you to be real.
Raghunath Prabhu to
And it's full of musical instruments.
But then I won't be able to see Rupanuga Prabhu anymore.
Sounds like,
You'll have to use your data. So you'll become very stingy with your internet time.
sounds like a promotion to me. Man, I couldn't resist it. I tell you right, I couldn't resist it. So
Why don't you come, Prabhuji?
Well, I'm just saying, I can't.
No,
say
we need to fly up Rupanuga Prabhu.
Don't change the subject. Okay, you're the subject.
We need to kidnap Rupanuga
But
Prabhu.
we have to get you out of isolation.
Yes, exactly. That's the point. And Gaura Prabhu has a lot of potential, and he's spread all over the world. But he himself, he doesn't have his scene. I'm sorry to speak like this. He doesn't have his shit together. So it'd be nice to be close to the cow for him, and also it would ground him so that we can take advantage of his. He likes to read to people and chant and so on. So we, like that. This is why. Anyway, I heard it directly from Rupa Raghunath Prabhu that he's completely in favor, and he says it's a promotion, Prabhu.
Is Krishna is sending mercy? Grab it, Prabhu. And then we will have mercy to have you with us.
I'm planning to come for at least 1 week when I come out. the Ottawa Ratha Yatra is on the 27th, and I want to catch the Maskuch Kirtan, and then after that, I thought I'd come and stay with Francis for a week.
Yeah, but Rupanuga Prabhu, I'm sorry to say, but he wants to go and sell his etching, some small insignificant pictures with some Bugs Bunny in it.
I'm distributing books.
When he sell his Bugs Bunny, he give books to inspire people with it. So I'm just telling you that we're telling him to please give this up and come and be with us. We have so much more important work to do. And Gaura Prabhu is growing old. His leg is hurting him, and he can still sing. So
well, one thing is Gaura is also doing important work. You're going to have to let him come there, and if you're going to convince him, you're going to have to do it on the spot. Okay, you're not going to be able to do it on Zoom. Okay, you want him to see what you're doing. Seeing is believing. Okay. Seeing is inspiring. So let him come there. And bottom line is, he'll get enlivened by coming there. The bottom line.
We're gonna do it the old way. We're just gonna have him with prasadam. Prasadam there is fantastic.
You can always lock him up.
Vedavyas Prabhu's wife is also like an Ayurvedic cook, and they cook everything from the garden that they grow themselves. And now they have the pure milk product to add to that, the pure paneer, it's a tradition in the program that Vedavyas Prabhu that before taking prasadam, we have to have prasadam darshan. And everybody explain what is the preparation, how it came from, because it's been the core of his service for the last 10 years. And I don't think there's any place in Canada where you can eat better, Gaura, in terms of spiritual health.
Does that mean you're going to be sticking around, Hridaya Chaitanya Prabhu?
Yeah, well, I'm requested and been kidnapped here, but yeah, I'll be there definitely. Definitely, if you're there, I'll be more inclined to come, Prabhu.
Well,
I've really been traveling.
It's a serious matter.
I For me, it came at a very tough time in my life that I got to have the association of Veda and the devotees and see what it was there. And because I'm a disciple of Bhakti Raghava Swami, so I was a lot involved with farms and things like that, preaching about it in the early 2000s. And to see what Vedavyas Prabhu has done in Canada and where he's at and the potential, to not only train devotees, but also giving them a way by which they can live a very sadhik life. I mean, it's very, very, very inspiring, very inspiring.
The biggest problem of the modern civilization is that they're industrialized. And
Yeah.
people are learning, people are simply made to become dependent upon the government. And the agricultural days were covered. And that's one of the basic principles of spiritual culture, is to be self-sufficient and have cow protection. And actually, this example you're setting is very, very timely. And it's very, very important. It's something that hasn't really been stressed enough in the history of ISKCON. Srila Prabhupada wrote me a letter once. He said, our founders are a very important part of our movement. But it hasn't really been that way. And it seems to me like spontaneously it's happening. This is spontaneous. It's a spontaneous thing. It's like picking up where Srila Prabhupada wanted us to pick up. So you should take this very seriously, because it's the right kind of example to set for the people. They need this.
Well, I was a book distributor before, but I was Sankirtan leader in Vancouver. But whoops, are you there?
Yes. Yeah,
Okay,
we hear
okay.
you.
Okay, so what we decided to do is go forward with this. We simplify things. And one of the reasons I'm doing this is to make people like you, who's 83 years old, to smile.
Well,
And then-
it's like listen, book distribution and opening was like the foundation of the whole movement for so long. And the idea of independence and self-sufficiency and cow protection was put on the back burner. And I think it's time to put it on the front.
Thank you.
Not that we have to reduce book distribution or reduce any of that, but we really need much, much more to add this self-sufficiency, to add the agricultural. That's really very important. And it hasn't been really done that much, if at all. And the way you're doing it is really nice, because it's all like, it's just a spontaneous thing. It's just growing of its own,
We are affecting people also. I noticed that. Just give you an idea, there is one, I have, like Haridhar Chaitanya says, we have 40 volunteers that works 3 hours a day minimum. And they know that I'm a devotee of Krishna, but I don't preach to them directly. But I have a Bhagavad Gita close by, and once in a while, when I see somebody's in distress, I open the book and I show them the Gita. And one of the lady there, each time she come to do her service, when she leaves, she open the Gita and she read one verse. And if I'm there, she read it to me, or otherwise she read it to herself. And after she close the book and she goes home. So this is like small things happening in its own ways, apart from those who are more serious around us.
And actually, one of these volunteers, Zian, is now back in Zian. She's 16 rounds, and she's very much involved with this project that we were talking about. And she came from that volunteering at Prabhu's work, because he's an organic gardener for the city. But he has a whole network. That's his job. And one of his volunteers became, she's probably going to be initiated in a year or two, or so very, very serious.
Srila Prabhupada said about the storefront, he said, I didn't get these boys with philosophy. I got them with prashadam.
Yes. And on that note, go on. I'll let you finish, and then I want to add something. Please finish.
Well, I'm saying, and even there's a statement about the best way to a man's soul is through his stomach.
Yes.
And we've proven that. This movement's proven that.
Yes.
So I think you just don't worry too much about the philosophy at this point. Just give them, that's what Srila Prabhupada did. He just gave everybody good prashadam. With the Sunday feasts were wonderful. I mean, he didn't cook them all himself, but he trained up the cooks, and it was wonderful. So prashadam is really the key to making devotees, as much as anything.
Yes, and on that note, I contacted our godbrother Siddhanta Prabhu, famous for his Prabhupada memories, and I said, listen, we're going to be talking about duties of a temple president and Sunday love feast. You have a good Prabhupada memory about the Sunday love feast, and he sent this one to me. So this is Jayadvaita Swami giving a recollection. A standard Sunday feast menu included a few different kinds of rice, pushpana, white rice, and maybe one other. There would be a wet sabji like Prabhupada's cauliflower and potatoes, and a dry sabji, and sometimes some other sabji also. There were always spicy cauliflower and pea samosas, cooked dry, and a couple of different kinds of pakoras. There were white puris, different kinds of noodles, a few different chutneys, plum, apple, raisin, pineapple, and a variety of sweets like Simply Wonderfuls, halava, sweet rice, and gulab jamins. People were jolly. No wonder people joined. You'd have to be nuts not to join. The Sunday feast was not a small thing. Many years later, book distribution was a big thing, and Prabhupada said one person could remain at the temple. Everyone else could go distribute his books. In some places, the managers got the idea that the feast should be cut down, and they started having 4 or 5 preparations, so that one person could cook everything and everybody else could go distribute books. Prabhupada wrote a letter about that and said, no, it should be opulent. The feast program should go on full strength. So there's a little prasadam quote for you.
And I remember a story that was told by a Prabhupada disciple to me. Is at one point Prabhupada used to say that some people, they're coming through the books, some people will come through the holy name, and some people will come through prasadam. And then Prabhupada gazed at the whole room. He says, actually, all of you prasadam.
All prasadam devotees.
Yeah, all of you prasadam.
Rupanuga Prabhu, in those early days, like the 26th Second Avenue, you said that you said to me today, actually, in an email exchange, that by the time you came in October and Prabhupada established 26th Second Avenue, you said roughly July. So that was only 3 months. In that period of time, Kirtanananda learned how to do a lot of the major preparations. Is that right?
Now, Shiv Baba wasn't cooking. One morning, I arrived and they said, someone said, Shiv Baba's cooking today. Went for breakfast. So I ran upstairs to see what Shiv Baba was doing, and I saw him. He had a big black skillet, one of those iron skillets, and it looked like he was cooking oats, frying oats, and he was pouring in all the spices, pulling right out of the cabinet and just pouring in spices, a lot of cayenne. And so I went back downstairs and I was thinking, well, Shiv Baba's fixing breakfast. Doesn't look like very much, but I'll get a snack later at the office or something. But we'll wait for Shiv Baba to bring down this prasadam will come down from Shiv Baba. So it came down, and we're all sitting there, and everybody went around and got about 2 or 3 scoops of whatever Shiv Baba had fixed. It was sort of like oats, fried oats mixed with spices and everything. And I was thinking, well, okay, we'll see how much. So I took 2 bites and I was completely satisfied. I never forget that. But that's where Shiv Baba he wasn't cooking the feast. He was, he was around and supervised, but he taught everybody what they were doing.
So there was no vegetables. It was like spicy oats.
But that was that was for breakfast.
Breakfast, yeah.
That's all it was. And we usually had fruit and oatmeal. That's about it. But that morning, Shiv Baba did that special preparation.
So you remember the feast because you were simultaneously a GBC and a temple president at the same time. I remember in Chicago in '75, Gopati Prabhu and Vishnudat Prabhu, they would cook up, I think it was close to a 10-course Sunday love feast. There was a lot of variety. Do you remember?
Oh.
Well, when he was cooking in Washington for a while, after, I think it was after I left, they used to call him Geepity.
Geepati.
Geepity, yeah.
Yeah, but Prabhupada liked us to have quite a bit of variety, didn't he, at these Sunday feasts?
The first feast that he, in India, one of the first feasts that they had, I have the recording. They said, "Sure, Bobby, what do you want us to fix for a feast?" And he gave 4 things that would make a feast, the bottom line. And I remember there were chutney,
Chutney,
sabzi,
sabji,
halwa,
halwa.
and chutney, sabzi, halwa.
Dal,
Puris.
No.
Rice.
Let him speak.
Chutney, sabzi. Did I say halwa? There was a sabzi and there was chutney. Oh, puri.
Puri, yeah.
That's it. You got it.
These 4 things were, he told them that's a feast, and they were preparing that. This is one of the first things they did in India, I remember. And so that was, but on the Sunday feast we used to have when I was there. See, what happened was, some people came and wanted to make the donation of some stainless steel pots, some big pots. And Srila Prabhupada was asked, well, these people want to donate these pots so we can have a bigger feast on Sunday, but we think they've cooked meat in them. And Srila Prabhupada said, stainless steel can be purified from anything, including
Wow.
meat. Including meat. So we accepted all these big pots, and they used to come down from upstairs into the storefront and just line them up. And I just remember some of the preps. We always had sweet rice and pakoras and samosas, and the wet vegetables was usually the cauliflower and potatoes. And we had a dry dal kind of preparation, kind of crisp. I forget what that was. Always had a big thing of glubjamins, big. And that's about what I remember. But that was like every time, every Sunday, it was like all those things were at least there.
Now, what's your view today, Rupanuga Prabhu, with this whole vegan thing? Do you think that we're obliged to make some things in coconut oil because some people are finicky about having anything cooked in ghee? What's your view on that?
My view is, what's Krishna's view? What's Krishna's view about that? What's Srila Prabhupada's view about that? He told us you should be cooking in ghee. He said, if there's a shortage, somehow or another, a shortage of ghee, he said peanut oil could be used. Peanut oil. But that's the only time I ever heard him say anything other than ghee. But we don't cook according to people's taste. We cook according to Krishna's taste. Srila Prabhupada's taste. Okay? So we don't substitute. Krishna loved yogurt, he loved milk, he loved butter, he loved ghee.
in any case, the vegan scene is pretty it's pretty weird.
You have to be careful. You have to be careful about kowtowing to people's tastes. They have to kowtow to our tastes, to the Krishna's taste. Our standards are coming from the prasadam point of view, which Srila Prabhupada gave us. As far as the vegan goes, well, all I can say to vegans is, what happened to Krishna's yogurt? What happened to his milk? What happened to his butter? What happened to his ghee? What happened to his burpee? What happened to all the sweets? What do you do? Offer to Krishna, then distribute it and don't take it yourself? I mean, I don't know how they do it. Besides, the philosophy behind veganism is not really pro-cow. They really believe the cows are domesticated. They believe the cows were living in jungles and forests, and human beings brought them out and domesticated them, which is completely false.
But wasn't Krishna's cows, weren't they in the forest?
What? They may have been part, but they weren't domesticated. They were always cows.
Right.
Cows since time immemorial.
One of the name for cows is one who needs protection. There's many names for the cow.
So anyway, look, this veganism is like a whole new, I mean, I never even heard of it. You know, I mean, it's a whole new thing that came from outside.
Yeah.
It came from outside. And in my humble opinion, if temples are going to distribute foodstuffs cooked in vegetable oil, then actually they're just a vegetarian restaurant. Because Krishna doesn't accept that. Krishna does not accept foodstuffs cooked in oil, vegetable oil. He will not accept it.
I heard you say this in one of our other talks before. So basically, what you're insinuating is that if we use vegetable oil, we're eating boga?
What I'm saying is, you're not distributing prasadam. If you offer people, what you call prasadam, but you said you offer to Krishna, it is not. Krishna does not accept food cooked in oil, vegetable oil. He does not. That's not the standard that Srila Prabhupada set. We never use vegetable oil.
That's
Never.
radical. Mangalananda has his hand up.
Yeah, and never mind this idea about, oh, so many people.
And we're going to lose people because there's so many vegans these days. We're going to lose them.
Well, you don't have to lose them. But I'm saying when you offer to the deities and you offer to the people, it's based on the prasadam program Srila Prabhupada gave us.
And if you cook in ghee, you're gonna get all the meat eaters.
Yes.
There's way more of them.
He
And they're
said,
less involved with that LGBTQ and all that nonsense that's going
Woke.
on.
Srila Prabhupada said, listen, Srila Prabhupada said that people who eat prasadam will lose their taste for meat because
Right.
of the ghee. He said, you don't have to kill the cow to get the ghee. The cow eats grass, and the cow turns grass into milk and butter and ghee. So you get the taste, the meat eaters will get the taste of blood they want by taking ghee, he said.
Right. You also, yes, go on.
So ghee is very important for that reason also. Srila Prabhupada was very practical. Very practical. So the ghee, if that taste of ghee, whether they realize it or not, it doesn't matter, they know what's going on. That it will satisfy their taste for blood, because that's what it is.
It satiates, satiating.
People are after the taste of blood. That's what meat eating is, especially cows.
I'd like to share something I read when I was in Gita Nagari in 1994. And I saw a letter that was written by Srila Prabhupada. And I never saw that letter anymore, anywhere. And it was definitely signed A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, you were very well wisher. And Prabhupada answered a question regarding milk and cows. He says, you drink it sparingly until you have your own cows.
What?
You drink milk sparingly until you have your own cows.
Oh.
Because the cow protection scene was in forefront of Prabhupada's mind, because he said it. He said, I was reading it. And regarding your statement regarding the cooking in oil, in 1956, Prabhupada wrote an article, and he says that he was speaking against cooking in oil. I remember reading this, so I hate it, but I gotta submit to it. So I agree.
I couldn't hear that.
Srila Prabhupada, in 1956, there was an article I read. That's before he came to the West regarding cooking in oil.
Yeah.
And Prabhupada spoke against cooking in oil.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's very popular in India. I mean, it's like considered, I mean, in Bengal, they eat fish and they call it water vegetable. Does that mean that we're going to do it? Can we do it in Bengal? It's not that India sets the standard. Srila Prabhupada sets the standard. If India had set the standard, he wouldn't have come here alone. He couldn't get anybody else to come with him. What happened to the standards? He begged some big men, can you give me one son? I'll make him a Brahmin. Oh no, he's Swamiji. He has to have a job and family and this other stuff.
I have a question.
Lord Chaitanya said every Indian should get out of India. He's going, I want this movement spread every town and village on the planet. You want every Indian to preach. And Shil Baba said, at least one came.
Mangalananda Prabhu, you had a point?
Yeah, so we spoke about veganism, we spoke about oil. What about foods from other cultures? Like you mentioned sabji, halva, puri, and the chutney makes a Sunday feast. And so during Prabhupada's time, was it only what we call Indian food, or was there pasta sometimes and things like that? And what would be the view on that for a Sunday feast? Would it be appropriate sometimes to, add variety, or,
Look, all I can answer is when I was temple president, we just cooked the standard things that you find in the Hare Krishna cookbook, like that. That's when I was, but I was temple president the last time was in what, 88, 89, 90, 89. In Washington, D.C., I was president. But I always made sure when I was temple president that wherever I was, that we just used the same standards that Shil Baba had. And, kowtowing to vogues or customs, whatever, pizzas and stuff. I mean, it depends, it depends on what the situation is, but we're talking about temple standards. That's one thing. You're talking about home standards. I don't remember offering pasta. I don't remember offering pasta or spaghetti or pizza. But when it comes to home or restaurant, that's a different story. But when it comes to temple standards, I mean, Chaitanya Charitamrita is filled with all kinds of recipes. I mean, Prasadam was very important to Lord Chaitanya. There's whole chapters on sweets and vegetables and shak and how much he loved greens. All these they were. I mean, Prasadam was really important to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He treated with great reverence. And sometimes he was there, take more, fill up to the top of your neck, So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was very, very attached to Prasadam's serving. And take a look at some of those recipes.
Yeah.
Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, your question about what do I think about this? I don't think about it. But all I think about is a tradition, the tradition. And I never, at least in the temples where I was in charge, I never served anything like that. We always used the standard preparation we learned from Shil Prabhupada, and you find the Hare Krishna cookbook. And I still have a Hare Krishna cookbook here. It's 87, but it was 81 or something. And it's
myself, I'm so attached to rice, dal, sabji, and now I go to so many different feasts, and this is not what I get. And I'm as Western as they come.
So many things.
I love this old Indian, whatever, like the old style of prasadam. That's what I join with, and that's how I like to eat, with my hand and rice. And I mean, I don't know. If I had a choice, I would always choose that over pizza or anything.
This cookbook here, this cookbook here by Jamuna Devi that won the award. This is the Prasadam Bible. This has a lot of the recipes that Prabhupada would personally consume himself. Recipes from his sister. This is the real deal here.
That's not the full edition either.
What do you mean?
That's a paperback, isn't it?
No, that's the full one.
Is that the full one? Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, I went on Radio Canada in French to present this book in 1988. Yeah.
And
I want to quote something that one disciple of Prabhupada, and I cannot remember his name, he told me when I was in India, because in Mayapur there is so many pizza stand and all that stuff. and then Jai. And then Prabhupada, somebody told me, Prabhupada says, don't bring the spaghetti Italian food in the Dham because it's going to ruin the culture.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I was in,
In Mayapur.
when I was in
Yeah.
when I was in Vrindavan a few years ago, I met our godbrother Subhag Maharaj, and he said to me, "If you have pizza prem, you cannot get Krishna prem. If you have veggie burger prem, you cannot have Krishna prem. If you have lasagna prem, you cannot get Krishna prem." He said, "We have to give to Krishna what Krishna likes, not that we prepare what we like and offer that to Krishna."
Who said that?
Subhag Swami.
And how do we know what Krishna wants? We don't ask him. We can't ask Krishna. We don't have that kind of relationship.
It's in that song, Bhaja Bhakata Vatsala Shri Guru Hari, and it's listing all so many preparations are there. Luchi, Puri, Ladu.
All the preps Shiva Baba gave us. I mean, they're all, standard. I mean, there's enough. You don't need Chinese food. You don't need Italian food. You don't need French food. You don't need it because is this that we were short on recipes?
Well, when I was running our Govinda's restaurant, Le Buffet de Chez Nous in Ottawa, I developed an international menu, and I noticed certain days, like every Wednesday would be Italian day, and people love the deep dish lasagna, and I on Thursday was Oriental day, and people loved the spring rolls and the stir fries. So certain people would come on certain days.
Yeah.
Not everyone liked Indian style food. Not everybody.
Right, but that wasn't a temple. That was a restaurant.
It was Govinda's, yeah. It was temple / restaurant. They were together combined.
It really boils down to what the heritage is. What is the legacy? And the best way to find out legacy is to find out what Shiva Baba left us. If he left us an attitude, if he left us some favorite prasadam or some recipes, we should follow them. We can't go wrong. He's the founder of Charya. We wouldn't even be here without him. We wouldn't be here. We would know how to fix a chapati. We wouldn't know how to cook a lot. We wouldn't know how to fix ladus or we wouldn't know anything. We wouldn't know anything. Whatever we've got, it's because Shiva Baba. But I've seen over the years this thing he called the change disease. And change disease means to change something simply for the sake of changing it. No other reason. And as far as I'm concerned, Shiva Baba gave us so many recipes, and there's so many recipes in the books. There's so many recipes we have from people like Jamuna and others who we trained up personally how to cook. So why do we have to go to other cultures, to other traditions? When this tradition, like people say, why are you wearing a dhoti? This is nothing new. It's thousands of years old. You're the one who changes style every 10 years. You're the one who changes your lapels on your coat. You're the one who changes the style of clothing you're wearing. The style is thousands of years old. How long has dhoti been around? I don't know.
Millions of years.
Krishna wears them.
No need of zippers.
No buttons.
Anyway, I mean, I know what I sound like some kind of a fanatic, but the word is not fanatic. The word is radical. I'm a radical. And the root word of radical, what's the root word? Gaura?
Radix is the Latin. Radix means the original, the source.
Right. That's the real root word of radical. So I'm a radical, I admit it. Maybe I'm just too old to change, okay?
You're old school.
Very, very old school.
And we're grateful to hear that.
You're 108% full strength Prabhupada.
About that. Anyone who follows Shiva Baba, Bani is Shiva Baba's man. To follow Srila Prabhupada means one thing. It means to be a transparent medium for him. Anybody who wants to be a leader, a guru, a pujari, or whatever, the main qualification is, are they a transparent medium for Srila Prabhupada? You can't improve on the perfect. So what it means to be a follower of Srila Prabhupada is to be his servant. He's the master. He's the big master. One time he says, I may be a big servant, but I'm a servant. The servant, the servant, the servant, the servant. So everybody who claims to be a follower of Srila Prabhupada means they're his servant. And what does that mean? It means you do what the master says. The master says, eat this, do this, chant this many rounds, do this, do that. We do it. Like Srila Prabhupada once said, he said, we are not pushing on vegetarianism or non-vegetarianism. That is not our business. We are Krishnites. We do what Krishna says.
Krishnatarian, Prasadamarian.
So really, I think the main thing for the Hare Krishna movement to survive perpetually is to remain fixed at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada. And that means to follow there's 10 offenses to the holy name. And one of them, very important one, is to neglect the order of the spiritual master. And which spiritual master are we talking about? We're talking about Srila Prabhupada. Prabhu means the master, and Pada means the lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada is the world Acharya. Who else in this world has preached the Chinta Veda Veda all over the planet, which is the highest possible understanding for the human brain? And that comes from the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, Achinta Veda Veda Tattva. And the other Vaishnava Sampradayas don't accept Lord Chaitanya as the Yuga avatar. And he teaches the Yuga Dharma, which is the holy name to be delivered all over the world. So this Sampradaya came out of India. This knowledge was locked up for 5,000 years because the 600 Bhagavad Gitas that came out before Srila Prabhupada didn't make a single devotee because they couldn't decipher, they couldn't decode the verses. All they stayed on the level of grammar. That meant they had to speculate. But Srila Prabhupada gave the real meaning. Sutra. Sutra means code. So they couldn't decode those verses like Srila Prabhupada did. See? And what he did was he brought this Vedic knowledge that had been locked up in India for 5,000 years because all the books that came out were not proper. They were not properly deciphered. So one person brought this whole culture out of India for the rest of the world. And someday they're going to recognize him, above the Einsteins, above the Shakespeares, above the Marxists, as the real world Acharya. Because on one paragraph, he gave more to the world than they did in all their books. In one sentence. He's the world Acharya, and he's the world Acharya for all the other Vaishnava Sampradayas who never came out of India. They're all perfectly bona fide. They've been coming around since time immemorial. But why did Lord Chaitanya take his appearance in this Sampradaya? That's because Madhavendra Puri introduced Mother Radharani. Madhavendra Puri was the spiritual master of Ishvara Puri, who was the spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya. And when Madhavendra Puri came, at that time, only Krishna was worshipped in our Sampradaya. And Srila Prabhupada writes in a purport in Chaitanya Charitamrita that the Sampradaya consisted mostly of rituals with hardly a sign of love of God. But then Madhavendra Puri introduced Mother Radharani. And so Radha Krishna. And so that's why Srila Prabhupada said Lord Chaitanya appeared in this Sampradaya. Because Radha Krishna were being worshipped. So we have the highest possible understanding of the Supreme Personality of God, Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva, inconceivably, simultaneously one and different. And we're the only people who could hold it in our brain at once. Everybody else says it's one or the other, but we say it's both, inconceivably. Nobody has come up with a better statement than Achinta Bheda Bheda Tattva, and Srila Prabhupada preached that all over the planet. That makes him everybody's Acharya. Just like Chaitanya was the Yuga avatar, and he taught the Yuga Dharma. And Srila Prabhupada spread that out of India, all around the world. Someday it'll be known. Someday, if we preserve Srila Prabhupada Vani, if we preserve his teachings and keep those books going out, someday he'll be recognized above Einstein, above Marx, above Shakespeare, above all these people, as being the real own person, the only person who taught universal principles for the whole world.
Sounds good.
Every day we should meditate on the fact of our good fortune. Our good fortune. That from Srila Prabhupada we've learned the absolute truth. We've learned to tell the difference between Maya and reality and see them side by side. If we learn how to see Vidya and Avidya side by side without falling. So therefore, we're on the safe side the more we stick to Srila Prabhupada's instructions. The more we follow his example, not imitating him, but emulating him. That imitation was a big mistake. 77.
What about that saying that imitation is the best form of flattery, or Prabhupada said imitation of a good thing is also a good thing, didn't he?
Come on, Gaura. So anyway, I'll have to excuse myself because I need to go now. So thank you very much, Rupanuga Prabhu and Gaura Prabhu and all the Vaishnavas present. It was very, very enlivening for me to be part of this discussion. And hopefully I'll take part in something more. And I have probably some other questions to bring up soon.
Sure.
It's very personal, so thank you.
We can organize this again.
All right.
Thanks a lot for coming, Vedavyas Prabhu.
Thank you, Vedvyas Prabhuji. Thank you for coming.
Ambarish Prabhu, do you have any thoughts come to you through the evening, or any further questions for Rupanuga Prabhu from you?
No, Prabhu, no questions, but I really like the way Rupanuga Prabhu explained, and I'm trying to absorb his mood, and he's saying, he's telling the truth that we have to stick to the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada and his teachings, and whatever we do, whatever we organize, it has to be focused around Krishna, and all our activities should be pleasing him, not pleasing the audience much. And that's how we will not deviate from the teachings of Srila Prabhupada. So I will definitely absorb this, Prabhu, and will meditate on this. But I've learned a lot of things today. Thank you so much, Gaura Prabhu, for organizing this. We don't get such association here, but and big Haribol to Zoom. I mean, who could have imagined we can have such a great devotees and just like one-on-one.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Gaura Prabhu. You're very merciful.
No, when I saw how enthusiastic you are to serve, and how receptive and open you are, I thought he needs to talk to Rupanuga Prabhu. You know, I mean, I served as a co-president, acting president a few times, but I mean, Rupanuga Prabhu is in another class. He's in another, he's above my pay grade.
Yes, and Prabhuji, as I discussed with you as well when you came to our place, that yes, we have good number of Indian people in the congregation. We all know they are the low-hanging fruit. The real help is required among the locals,
Right.
and they really deserve this. And somehow we need to cater them and give Krishna consciousness the way Prabhupada gave. And personally, I need help approaching Westerners. How should we preach them? How should we approach them
Mhm.
and bring them together and present Krishna consciousness?
My humble opinion is that you should train up some Indians to preach. To be born in India, you're 50% Krishna conscious. Prabhupada said that. I started from zero. Okay. Most of us started from zero. They were born 50% Krishna conscious. And Prabhupada said the reason that was covered over because of the politics.
Mhm.
So when you've got Indians there, I mean, I have great respect for the Indian people. I think they're the chosen people. They were chosen by Lord Chaitanya, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to preach all over the world. And I've always, when I was in Washington, D.C., I was the temple president there for twice. And I always found that I could depend on some of the more mature Indian devotees to understand Srila Prabhupada more. And they were like congregational members. But they were easy because it's like skin deep, it's just a little, anyone born in India, just below the surface that Krishna consciousness there. So my humble opinion is that if you have Indian devotees there, they should be trained, at least one should be trained up to preach. And I believe that they'll be very well received. There was a day when India was very much respected during Spirit Prabhupada's time, and even a little after that, for the place of spiritual knowledge. To go to India, a lot of people went to India in those days to learn about spiritual life. In fact, Hari Griva and Kirtananda went over on the Jaladut, the boat that Srila Prabhupada came over on. They went before that, they went to India looking and didn't find Srila Prabhupada, so they came back empty-handed. I thought that was kind of interesting. The very boat that he came on, they went over looking for him, didn't know it.
They actually took the Jaladuta before Prabhupada did.
They took the Jaladuta from here to India.
Right. Before Prabhupada came.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like the idea, Rupanuga Prabhu, that you presented, that it should not be that people come on Sunday and then come on Sunday and there's nothing happening between two Sundays. This whole cultural movement should be deeply rooted into the families. I really like that idea.
Absolutely. And that has nothing to do with being Indian or American. But one thing about the Indian devotees, they come from a culture where extended family was very important. Family relations and family life and family obligations were very important in Indian culture. So they know about that. In fact, I always found that the Indian congregation members would often go to each other's house and have like we would call parties, but they would have religious affairs and meet at each. But they would invite me, and I was always upset that there were other Americans there but me. So I told them, I said, you people work side by side with Americans, and they respect you, and they know you're productive, you're intelligent, you're very honest. So why don't you invite them over for some of your wife's cooking or something? Let them have some samosas in your house, or let them see your little deity. Let them understand. And as soon as you bring out the Gita, people will become interested. But I'm just saying there's so many different ways to engage Indian devotees. But my humble opinion is they should be trained up, especially about Lord Chaitanya. But they often know about Krishna, but they don't know about Lord Chaitanya. And that makes a big difference, because it's that spirit of Lord Chaitanya that is the missionary spirit. And Srila Prabhupada was the embodiment of the missionary spirit of Lord Chaitanya. So when they learn more about Lord Chaitanya and Srila Prabhupada, they'll pick up on the mission. This is a missionary movement.
Prabhu, how do we know more about Lord Chaitanya?
What?
How do we know more about?
All the Indians should read TLC. It's a small book, and it's like a summary of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. It's very important.
Which book is that, Prabhuji?
Teachings of Lord Chaitanya.
Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, a very, very, very important book, especially for Indians. Indian devotees. My opinion, that book should be reproduced in every language all over the planet, because who can afford to put out, 16, 17 volumes of Chaitanya Charitamrita? But that TLC is the condensed version. Very important. That will introduce Lord Chaitanya, because this is his movement. He started this Hare Krishna movement. And the movement started in people's homes. When Lord Chaitanya told everybody in Navadvip that he wanted them all to chant Hare Krishna in their homes, they all did it. And they raised such a din that the local Muslims complained to the Qazi. That's what started it. They were all chanting at home. They weren't in the street doing Harinam. They were at home. And so the Qazi went, and he went into somebody's house. It was in the house that he broke the Mridanga. And then Lord Chaitanya said, all right, everybody out. Okay, and with a torch, and they went to see. And then after that, it was always out. But initially, the objection was to chanting in the home. Everybody was chanting Raise the Din, even though they were in their homes chanting. So this chanting at home, this perfection at home program, and that perfection at home is not my idea. It's an essay I saw. I was one time visiting in Vrindavan, and I was in Srila Prabhupada's room, and I saw under a table, glass table, there was an essay there that was unpublished, an old essay, and I asked the lady who was taking charge of the room, I'd like to see that. So she opened the cabinet, and I got a hand on it, and she gave me a typewriter, and she gave me some typing paper, and I typed out the thing. And the name of this unpublished 1950 some essay was called Perfection at Home. And it was all philosophy. But the impression was this was not a temple, scene. This was intended, the philosophy, to be taken home and understood at home. And when Lord Chaitanya was preaching and started preaching, he began his preaching in South India for 2 years. He went to Kurma Brahman's house and instructed Kurma Brahman on the same thing. Kurma Brahman wants to join him and leave his wife and join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, no, you stay home, you chant Hare Krishna, you read Bhagavad Gita, you have your friends and relatives over. And then he left. And as he started out again, he looked back and he saw Kurma Brahman was following him at a distance. And the next verse says, he took great care to send him home. And it said there in the purport that Lord Chaitanya preached the same thing to Kurma Brahman throughout his 2-year tour in South India. Another place, Srila Prabhupada said, to remain at home in a humble spirit, a humble bit of mind, and study Chaitanya Charitamrita and gain humility. So anyway, your understanding of, like Srila Prabhupada said, this is not churchianity. It is not a Sunday to Sunday movement. It's all a week, because that's the impression that people give from some sectarian organized religions. It's a Sunday program, or maybe a reading or something during the week. But that's because this is a culture. It's not a religion. It's a culture. It's a postgraduate study of religion, the philosophy of ours. And it's a culture. It's a whole way of life. I mean, look around you. Look at the habits that you have. It's a cultural movement. So I really thank you very much for grasping that point. And if you can institute it now, you will find major results, because people will become more fixed up and more dedicated and take more initiative. And you know what? They'll start preaching themselves. And that way we can spread this movement. We have to get over this idea of an organized church, of a big building. Srila Prabhupada said about Waxika Avenue, the LA temple, he said, our trouble started when we got this property. And his spiritual master said that also. I'd rather tear up the marble in this building and print books. As soon as we got this donation from such and such, and we built this, and then we started running. And what were they doing? They were arguing over who would occupy what room. And Dr. Siddhanta was very disturbed about that. Didn't want, he just tear up sell the marble. So we find every time there's a question of properties, of ownership, of big buildings, we get problems. We start losing the vision, of the culture. They get narrow-minded, and ambition comes, and fighting comes, and what we call controversies. And I'll tell you how a controversy is born. I wrote an essay once called Controversy Theory, and here it is. Whenever an order of Srila Prabhupada is neglected, or controverted, or contravened, or ignored, at that moment, a controversy is created. A birth of a controversy has just took place. And if his orders are continued to be ignored, you find yourself swimming in a sea of controversies. That's how controversies are born. When an order or instruction of Srila Prabhupada is ignored or superseded or contradicted or interpolated, you create a controversy. You want to avoid that because controversy will happen after Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur disappeared. What happened? Fighting. He said, he gave instructions. I want a GBC. There'll be no Acharya coming after me. We'll have a GBC. They didn't do it. They just started fighting over the stolen bread, right? And so that every year there was a new Acharya. And what did Srila Prabhupada do? In 1940, he formed his own separate organization, the Vaishnava Vedanta Samhiti, with Keshav Maharaj, who was later to become his sannyas guru. The three of them and a couple other godbrothers, they made a new organization. In 1940, he waited 4 years for there to be some change, and each year there was a new acharya. So he started his own group, and he was a family man. Srila Prabhupada had 5 children. He was an Ayurvedic pharmacist of high quality, highest. His days ointment is now the formula is now known. It was like panacea.
Days liniment and tooth powder also.
Yeah, I have a list. Sometime, so maybe in one of these meetings, I'll read it to you. I'll show it to you. Is a list of Srila Prabhupada's remedies that he had dictated, and it was typed up, and it included the formula for Day's ointment. I was shocked. For many years, I was thinking, whatever happened to that Day's ointment? I'm getting older. I'd like to have that ointment. I'll tell you. And what happened was, it was lost. I thought, and all of a sudden, a few years ago, somebody gave it to me. I forget who it was. Gave me this. It was obviously a dictated list the Srila Prabhupada gave for remedies. He said, whatever you need to work, if necessary, you have to use regular medicine. But if you can do this first, you won't have any side effects and there's little expenditure. And he gave a list of things to do for cold, for lumbago, or pains in the neck, or whatever it was. He had something.
Here it is. Days pain liniment.
Yeah, that when Srila Prabhupada came, he brought with him a bunch of those pamphlets. And I've got one. And it gives look at all the things around there that Day's ointment can be used for. And Srila Prabhupada wasn't bluffing, He wasn't a con man. He was telling what this stuff can do. You see? So we had Srila Prabhupada. He gave us the medical culture too.
Yeah.
Ayurvedic. He was an Ayurvedic pharmacist. And the same, he brought with him that, and he also had some copies of Easy Journey, which he distributed.
Hriday Chaitanya Prabhu, you've heard a lot from various swamis on Varnashram, and I know that's something that interests you a lot. Do you have any questions for Rupanuga Prabhu based on what you've studied on Varnashram?
Late in this meeting to open up, but I'd be very interested eventually to have that discussion. But I think that I'd be very, very interested at some point if we could have a discussion on Varnashram or even film some things. I was
Sure,
working
Baba,
with
what is
Bhakti
that?
Raghava Swami. I studied also with Bhakti Vijayapurna Swami. And I was editing books for the Varnashram Book Trust in India. So it's always been maybe one of my main involvement, or one of the little bit of work that I done in ISKCON. I was at a bit of substance. So I'd be very interested eventually, because you mentioned a little bit growing food, this, that, but I'd like to go deeper that, but I think that would be a very long discussion. I'm sure Prabhu has a lot to say about that.
Yeah, it's all based on psychophysical nature. Everybody has one. We're born with it. It may be Vaishnavas, we may be devotees, but everybody has a psychophysical nature.
Yeah.
And Varnashram was the engagement, proper engagement, according to Varnashram. So Baba would say, well, we're all Vaishnavas, but we're going to show by example how to do all these other things. And that was really based on the devotee's proclivity. But like a Vaishnava Vaishya, a Vaishnava Kshatriya, a Vaishnava Brahman, a Vaishnava Shudra. There's a big difference. It's all Daiva Varnashram. Daiva Varnashram is not an ordinary ashram. Ordinary ashram is different thing. Daiva Varnashram is God-centered ashram, Krishna-centered ashram. So everybody there is a devotee, but they act according to their psychophysical natures in service to Krishna.
Yes.
Like, for example, one morning walk, Shubhab was talking about Varnashram College, and he was talking about the Kshatriyas. And he said the boys should be taken on a hunt. They should be taken to hunt, to learn how to kill. And he said, if they want, they can eat what they kill. If they want to, they don't have to, but they can.
Wow.
So he was given permission for the purpose of training Kshatriyas. We're talking about the real thing here. Okay? Not show bottle. We're talking about a Kshatriya. If training Kshatriyas have to learn how to kill, otherwise they can't be Kshatriyas. But for the right cause, of course. So these boys would be taken on a hunt and trained how to kill animals. Because how are you going to learn how to kill? You can't kill people. So you learn how to kill by killing animals. And he said, if they wanted to, they could eat what they kill. Not that they had to. But just see how serious this is. This is not a bunch of, a bunch of Boy Scouts in the woods, a bunch of Eagle Scouts or something like that.
Were you on those Varnashram walks with Prabhupada?
I heard it. I heard the verbatim recording.
Okay.
I remembered that part. It really struck me that Shiva was talking about the real thing. He's talking about real Vaishyas, real Kshatriyas.
I've often thought about that because our Mayapur has been attacked from external causes and even sometimes internal. And I've often thought, where are the Kshatriyas? Where are the people that will keep the law and order in our city of Mayapur?
Law and order has been the problem in ISKCON. Okay, for a long time. And when the GBC was first formed, we were all grihastas. And when Tamal Krishna took sannyas, Shri Prabhupada said, now we have to replace Tamal Krishna. He has taken sannyas. We have to replace him with a grahastha. But Tamal refused to leave the GBC. He refused to leave. So Srila Prabhupada let him stay because he knew it's like you take a bamboo, you can bend the bamboo to a certain point. You have to know when it will break. So Srila Prabhupada knew how to bend a bamboo without breaking it. He knew how to bend a devotee. He knew how to bend a disciple without breaking it. So he let Tamal stay on the GBC, but he was only sannyasi.
But then did that set a precedent for all the other GBCs to also become?
I don't think Srila Prabhupada intended as a precedent, or he wouldn't have said that. You have to understand something. Srila Prabhupada was never a compromiser, but he was very merciful. And he wouldn't push somebody past their point. He never wanted anybody to leave. And if they left, he was very eager to get them back. Oh, you criticized him for falling down like that. No, he'll never come back. You talk in public about that, and he won't come back. You criticize a person who criticized someone for falling from sannyas. Well, now that you talked all about it, now he's embarrassed. Now you won't come back.
I heard when Kirtanananda left and came back, Prabhupada cried and embraced him.
I don't know about that. I wasn't there. I don't know. There's so many things Srila Prabhupada is supposed to have done and said, I can't really verify, okay? I can just tell you what I know from my hearing and my experience.
I remember when you were in Ottawa and you were our GBC in 76, you said to us that Prabhupada said, they are all saying, Prabhupada said, but it is all nonsense.
Sometimes it is, that's for sure.
Needs to be verified.
Yeah, I'm not telling you anything I haven't verified.
No, I know that.
All right, either I verified from the very person who heard it, and then I heard it from them, or I heard it myself, or I read it myself. Otherwise, I don't repeat it.
Right. Francis Prabhu, you've been very très tranquille, very quiet. I'm wondering, do you have any further questions before we end for Rupanuga about the cows or about living in the country or about sadhana? Avez-vous in demande? Do you have any questions?
Just before that, I think we will bow out. It's getting
Okay.
late here in Halifax. We're an hour ahead. So
Yes, that's true. Thank you so much, both of you, for coming. I'm
yes,
happy
thank
you could.
And
Yeah.
we can
Thank you for
continue
everything.
those discussion at some other point, but
To be continued. Yeah.
thank you.
Thank
Hare
you.
Yeah.
Krishna, Paranga Prabhu.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you,
Uh,
Prabhu. I will also
for
leave.
respect.
I'm also in Halifax.
They're
please accept my-
1 hour ahead of us, further.
Yeah.
It's 10:30 here.
Yeah. You got work or whatever tomorrow. So
Yeah,
thanks a
so-
lot for coming together. I'm happy to have your association.
Thank you, Rupananda Prabhu. I feel very honored that you took time to speak to us.
Yes,
Hare
and
Krishna.
we will be working on implementing some of what you have said here in Halifax. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhus.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Avoid Srila Prabhupada.
Ki jai.
Francis Prabhu, anything from you? Avez-vous en demande? Any question?
Hare Krishna, thank you for asking. I'm sorry because my English is not very fluent, but I didn't prepare any question. But of course, if there is another meeting, maybe I can prepare some question.
Okay.
But for now, maybe I don't know how to say in English, but so.
Pradyumna's here, and Pradyumna's fluent in French. Il est un traducteur. He can translate. Did Srila Prabhupada say anything to you specifically, Rupanuga Prabhu, regarding cows, cow protection, cow care?
Well, first of all, he told me it's a very important part of our movement. And he also told me we don't use any chemicals in the soil. We don't use chemicals. And these the standard that people use now. We don't use them in the soil.
Do you understand, Francis?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
I do not use any chemical at my place. We are kind of natural.
Biologic.
Yes. And we grow also some vegetables. And I was at the beginning of this Zoom meeting. I was taking care of. We plant 100 plant of asparagus.
Oh wow!
So we will in the next years we all gonna crawl under asparagus. We're going to have a lot of asparagus.
It's my favorite vegetable.
Oh yeah. So one more reason you have to come at my place. Yeah.
Very rich in.
So I don't have any question, but I have maybe one comment, because for living now for 1 year with the cow, my experiment is that it is really true what I heard about cow, that they are considered like as a mother. Yeah. And I feel very much like she's my mother, and I'm his calf. So yeah, and I feel I do protect her, and in the other way I feel she protects me from starving, and it's a good relationship. Yeah,
the cows are persons.
Yeah, of course.
Persons, just like we are. They have personalities.
Yeah.
I put this on my Facebook page today. Check this out, please. I don't know if any of you have seen this video before. It's only a couple of minutes long, but it shows you how protective mother cow is. These boys are pretending to eat other boys just to get the mother cow to come to the rescue. Can you see the video I'm showing here? Hold on, there. Very protective. That's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like you were saying, they're persons.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. I liked Nuga Prabhu's point earlier. Krishna's planet is called Goloka, the planet of the cows. So how can we prepare how can we go to the planet of the cows if we don't learn to love the cows here? It's a preparation.
Yeah.
Stoka Krishna Prabhu, he made a comment a little earlier. I think you were saying that you're serving between 200 and 700 plates of prasadam at your Sunday feast, Stoka Krishna? Hare Krishna asked to unmute. I'm unmuting you. I hope you'll unmute. Yeah, I missed your comment earlier, Prabhu. I have to. Please unmute yourself. Can't hear you. Okay, good. Yeah, what was your point, Prabhu?
Yeah, it was just the comment was when you were talking about the Sunday feast program, and here in Melbourne, the temple has between 200 and 700 visitors. Sunday feast guests, and they still make 6 to 7 preparations. I think it's it would be hard to have the whole lineup like you described before. 13 or 14 preparations, but I think 7 preparations at least the temple does make. Yeah, that's all I wanted to know.
And it's all done in ghee?
I believe so, yes.
Wow.
The temple uses ghee. I'm not sure if everything is done in ghee, but definitely, buckets and buckets of ghee.
Some temples are in the habit of fixing for the masses the oil and fixing for the deities in ghee. And when that came up in Shil Baba's time about fixing something different, he said that the people should get the same thing as the lordships. That means the lordships get a ghee on their plate, keep prepared, vegetables or whatever, that the same standard is for the masses of people who come.
Mm.
And it's so important. And I think that there's been a slipping about this, and I don't know how far it's gone, but I'm very suspicious about large feasts that I hear about 2,000, 3,000, less than people. Are they getting real prasadam? Are they getting really foodstuffs that are cooked in ghee and offered to Krishna?
So is it due to a lack of preaching, Rupanuga Prabhu? If a temple thinks, oh, that's beyond our budget, we can't afford to cook for.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely, it's a neglect on the part of leadership, that they don't foster enough faith in the devotees to understand that if they do what Srila Baba says, Krishna will provide.
Mm-hmm.
It's a simple faith.
To me, I would interpret that, and maybe in modern terminology, as a lack of intention. If your intention is to fulfill the Lord's will, which is the utilization of ghee, the Lord will provide it. But if your intention is not there, and you're thinking, "Oh no, we can't afford it," then that's also going to become true. You won't have the means because your intention is not there.
Well, I was temple president on 4 different occasions, and I'll tell you, things got pretty tight,
Yeah.
but we never stopped using ghee.
Uh-huh.
There was one time when the rent came due in New Hastinapur, $1,200, and we didn't have it. We did not have it. It was due the next day. We just didn't have it. And so what happened, one devotee came back from Book Distribution, had got a $1,200 donation
Wow.
from a soldier who was coming back into a civilian life. So we got the money to pay the rent the next day.
Amazing. Shamasundar would call that Krishna magic.
Well, I call it ghee magic. Anyway, you see, sometimes we think, well, how's it going to happen? Or, this comes out many times in devotional life. How we don't know how it's going to happen. We have to depend on Krishna. But we have to have the right to. We have to be depending on Srila Prabhupada's trying to follow his instructions and keep the standards, and Krishna will provide. When I went to Washington the second time in '87, the temple was folding up. It was practically, the temple kitchen was closed because the health department closed it. The water supply was condemned. There were only a few devotees left in the temple. And I went back there to get it out. And in a year and a half, I managed it. But there was one Indian life member who gave me $5,000 a month for 6 months.
Dr. Modi? Dr. Modi?
Help me get the temple back on its feet.
Was it Dr. Modi?
Yeah. And so, and I had to sell an acre also, because I had to put in water from the city supply. The whole thing had to be supplied. Very expensive. The well water was condemned.
Wow.
So Krishna provides in whatever way. If we have the right, as you said, the right intention, the right purpose to bring things up to standard, then if that mood is that ambition is there, then miracles can happen.
Prabhupada said in one place, a miracle is when Krishna is working, but we don't understand how he's doing it.
Yeah.
But it's Krishna. Yeah.
Well, there's six stages in the process of surrender. The first is to reject or only accept things which are good for advancement and devotion. Second is to reject what is
Unfavorable.
unfavorable. The third is to always feel protected by Krishna. Fourth is always feel dependent upon Krishna. That's the fourth step, and that's a very important one, to feel dependent. And we can do that, we can deserve that if we're following Krishna's instructions. Like Srila Prabhupada said, we do what Krishna says. And Srila Prabhupada does what Krishna says, and we do what Srila Prabhupada says. But how do we know what Krishna says except Srila Prabhupada didn't tell us? He has to tell us what. We don't approach Krishna directly, we have a go-between. That's Srila Prabhupada. And his books, that's what his books are. They're our go-between. Srila Prabhupada, listen, this is very important to understand. Srila Prabhupada never went anywhere. He didn't go anywhere. All that happened was he switched his potency, all of his potency, from Vapu to Vani.
Uh-huh.
So Srila Prabhupada is as much present in his Vani or his instructions as he was in his physical form. And he always told us the physical form is only temporary anyway. What's important in my books? So anybody who thinks Srila Prabhupada went somewhere doesn't understand transcendental science.
Mm-hmm.
When Srila Prabhupada was here, he was here in Vapu form and Vani form. But the Vapu form only lasted 10 years. And he warned us about that. He said, the most important is the Vani. And so the GBC's duty at the time of his disappearance was to lead a grieving society from dependence upon Vapu and Vani to Vani alone.
Uh-huh.
And because they didn't do that, too many people lost faith that Srila Prabhupada was going, I have to go somewhere else. But actually, he never went anywhere.
Does Prabhupada's Murti count as a Vapu?
No. Vapu specifically is describing the physical, the deities. The deity can give blessings, can accept prashadam. We can't chant on your beads.
Right.
But the deity Srila Prabhupada, the pictures of Srila Prabhupada, his instructions of Srila Prabhupada, we have to understand Srila Prabhupada was a transcendental person.
Right.
Krishna came to wrestle with him. Krishna came to talk with him. He was on a conversation level with the deities.
Yes.
We're not talking about a person who worked his way up the Sadhana Bhakti scale to become a Uttamadhika. We're talking about a person who was sent, but appeared to, just like all the acharyas had to be born, all the acharyas had mothers, so they had to be born and had to do something. Yeah. But Srila Prabhupada revealed who he was when he came to America. He once said, I was sitting with him and some other devotees in the garden in LA. And he once said, you can't see the form of the spiritual master. He said, it's like the clouds passing in front of the moon. When the clouds pass in front of the moon, it looks like the moon is moving. But it's the clouds that are moving. In other words, you're seeing Srila Prabhupada's form, his physical form moving. But that's not Srila Prabhupada. So there was a third form he was talking about besides Vapu and Vani. He was talking about his real form, which we couldn't see. Srila Prabhupada was not.
I have a story for you.
Okay.
Yes, go on.
No, I'm finished. I'm just going to say.
Go on.
Srila Prabhupada was not a human being, an ordinary human being.
You were saying earlier that Prabhupada spoke with Krishna.
Yes, when he was questioned by a reporter in Los Angeles, he said, "Do you speak to Krishna? Do you talk with Krishna?" And Srila Prabhupada and Ramaswamy interrupted at that point.
Right, I heard it.
Intelligence is the form, direction of the Lord, or something like that from the second canto. And Srila Prabhupada says, "No, Directly.
I think it was a Newsday reporter, Newsweek or something.
Reporter, I don't know who it was, but he was questioning Joe Papa about that. He said, no, why directly?
So listen, yes, right, he corrected him. So listen to this. This is our godbrother Ameyatma, and he sent this to me. It's not recorded anywhere else. I feel privileged to have this story. Okay, Srila Prabhupada was coming to Los Angeles. Last time he had come, I went with the hundreds of devotees who had greeted his arrival at the airport and was looking forward to it again. But just as the devotees were leaving to go to the airport, one senior devotee, can't recall who, asked me to stay back. There were still things that needed to be done. Can't recall, cleaning or decorating the temple, something like that. So I had to stay back. I was disappointed, but could see someone had to do the service. I was planning, though, on going out to the curb to greet Srila Prabhupada as he got out of the car. Still, when Srila Prabhupada arrived, there was a last second things to do, and I wound up having to stay in the temple room. This was Krishna's blessing in disguise. Now listen to this. When Srila Prabhupada entered the temple, followed by hundreds of devotees, I was standing near Rukmini Dwarkadish's altar. Srila Prabhupada greeted Gaura Nitai, took Charanamrita, and came before Rukmini Dwarkadish. Hundreds of devotees had huddled as close to Srila Prabhupada and were engaged in singing, I think, the Govindam prayers, or maybe it was live kirtan. Either way, the chanting and singing was loud. This was in the older LA Temple Room, the one that is now the Fate Museum. So it was less than half the size of the current LA Temple Room. Devotees pushed from behind, and I found myself standing right next to Srila Prabhupada. I had to push back on the devotees behind me to keep from touching Srila Prabhupada. But our faces were very close. I am short for American standards, and so Srila Prabhupada and I were the same height, which is 5'2". As Srila Prabhupada was standing before Rukmini Dwarkadish, I could hear Srila Prabhupada offering his prayers to Krishna. Actually, he was not praying, but he simply began speaking, not to, but with Krishna. Srila Prabhupada said, "So, I see you are dressed very nicely. Are they dressing you like this every day?" There was a short pause. Then Srila Prabhupada said, "Oh, very nice. Very good. How is the boga? Are they cooking nicely for you?" Pause. "Oh, very good. Are you enjoying it?" "Oh, very nice." I could not hear Krishna speaking, but I could hear Srila Prabhupada, and I could see that he was just asking Christian questions. He was not just asking Krishna questions, but he was hearing Krishna reply with the loudness of the singing. I don't think anybody else could hear Srila Prabhupada, but I was pushed up so close to him. We were the same height. I could hear him clearly. Actually, when he addressed Krishna, even though the deities in LA are Rukmini Dwarkadish, Srila Prabhupada addressed them as Shri Shri Radha Madhava.
Uh-huh.
Then, after this, Srila Prabhupada went on to greet Jagannath. I was no longer so close. And then sat on his Vyasasan, and devotees offered Guru Puja. And then Srila Prabhupada gave his arrival address. During the arrival address, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that he could see that the deities are being dressed nicely, and he could see the cooking was nice. And he told us that if we can remain engaged like this, serving the deities like this for the rest of our lives, we can go back home. He asked that we not decrease our service, but he knew the deity service was going on nicely at that time because he asked Krishna himself, and Krishna actually told him. Isn't that a cool story?
And part of that story is he called the deities by their real name.
Aha.
See, he's the one he called Radhamadava was the name, and they changed it. When he came back from a trip in India, I was listening to a lecture he gave, and he said, Jayamadeva looked very nicely taken care of. And he was talking about Rukmini Dwarkadish. In other words, they changed the name that he originally gave them.
I think
That day he addressed them as Jaya Radhamadeva. This devotee recorded that.
I'm not sure if it was Jayatirtha or who changed the name to Rukmini Dwarkadish.
So those kind of things are going on even during Srila Prabhupada's time. He didn't want the original temple room that they made. He wanted to leave the pews. He wanted to leave it as an auditorium.
He even said that people could keep their shoes on.
Yeah, he had a different idea, but they took all the pews out and they turned it into a temple room with a balcony and everything like that. But that wasn't what Srila Prabhupada wanted.
And I think they wanted to keep the organ in too. They had a big organ.
I don't know about that, but
Yeah.
I can just say that, you see, so even in those days, there were certain things were done independently without Srila Prabhupada's permission. There's always been a problem.
And there was, what do you call it? A pulpit also that Prabhupada wanted to keep in. So the person who would give the talk, the sermon, he could go up to the pulpit and the Gita would be there and he could speak.
That would have been wonderful because it would have really encouraged devotees to be able to preach to a group of people in a genuine way, including a lot of people who were not, maybe from different cultures and so on. And
Right.
They were allowed to wear their shoes on. There was nothing that was, everything was presented universally, you see, universally. And that's what Srila Prabhupada said. He said, Bhagavad Gita is not part of the Vedas. Bhagavad Gita is universal.
Mm-hmm.
And Srila Prabhupada himself taught universal principles all over the world. So, all these things, the changes, Srila Prabhupada always had to deal with that from the very beginning. The tendency to make some speculation, the tendency to interpolate something, the tendency to make an improvement or whatever. He tolerated so much. He said, you Americans, if you could walk on your hands, you would do it just to be different. Anyway, I've got to go now.
Me too. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to you that you showed up. You surprised me.
I intended to.
Please continue to surprise me. We'll have to do it again.
Now let me know.
All right. So thank you very much, Francis, for coming, Prabhu, and meeting Rupanuga, Prabhu, and Stoka Krishna. Great to have you back. Lakshminath, I don't know how much you were able to hear because I keep getting a message saying connecting to audio, so I don't know how much you've been able to listen. And our sound engineer, Pradyumna Prabhu, he's been silent in the background there.
Yeah, thank you, Bruce, for sharing.
Yeah, thanks a lot for coming, Pradyumna.
Haribol.
Thank you, Krishna.
All right. So until we meet again, please accept my respectful obeisances. Vanchakalpa Tribhyascha Sindhubhyeva Ananga Pavanayo Vaishnavyo Namo Namaha Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bo Hari Hari Bo. Good night, Stokaji. Or good morning, whatever. Thanks for coming, Lakshminath. I don't know how much you were able to get through, but thanks for coming. Would have liked to have heard from you. Maybe next time.